Tampa City Council is back in session. Roll call.
Carlson, Vieira, Maniscalco, Hurtak. Here. Goods.
Here.
Unmuted.
Miranda.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
We
The
have a physical
broadcast is
quorum.
now starting. All
Thank you.
attendees are in listen-only mode.
Just in case, let's go through roll call again, just in case. Please and thank you.
Carlson, Vieira, Maniscalco, Hurtak. Here. Goods.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. Councilman Miranda,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
we have two walk-on items.
Mr. Frank Smith, will you join me up here, please, sir? Smith, please explain to the audience and to the viewers and to the council what this is all about, and we'll start from there.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank you and the members of the council for honoring our oratorical contestants this year. The American Legion Oratorical Contest is a contest on the U.S. Constitution, which the Legion has been running for the past 75 years. In that, the contestants have to memorize 5 speeches. It's given without notes, off the top of their head, on different topics. There's an 8 to 10 minute speech, which we call the prepared oration, which is on the topic of their choice. And then there are 4 assigned topics which were assigned by the American Legion on different parts of the Constitution. This year, the 4 assigned topics were the 6th Amendment, the 8th Amendment, the 10th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. And we're very honored that you're honoring our folks this year. We only have 2 contestants from our post, and they're the only contestants in the county this year. So our contestant went all the way straight to the state finals from this. So with this, I'd like to turn it back to Councilman Miranda.
Stay right here, Mr. Smith. I'd like to also thank the commander of Post 5, J.R. Scoggins, for his diligent work in bringing the post to where it is today. And we have 2 contestants with us. The winner of this area that finished first, I want to introduce her first because this has a story. And the one that finished second has another story because she became the first one sometime after that because the first one could make it to the finals. Am I correct? Yes. That's what he told me anyway. Yeah. All right. So it's an honor, you know, when these young individuals, and what Mr. Smith talked about, you got to memorize a lot of things in the Constitution. And I'm honored that even sometimes they don't teach civics the way it's supposed to be taught. In fact, when we were in school, there was civics. They took it out for I don't know how many years. I don't know if it's back or not. I haven't checked. But these students of school age and these young people that do this is because they love the country and they love to make Florida and Tampa and the United States of America a better place to live. So Isabel Becour, will you please come up? Isabel, it's with great pleasure that the City Council of the City of Tampa present to you this commendation for earning the gold medal at the 2022-2023 U.S. Tampa Port 5 American Legion Oratorial Contest on January the 14th, 2023, as well as your singular achievement becoming the only triple winner. How do you like that? Huh? I was never even a double winner. And demonstrates your keen interest and appreciation for the principles and values set forth in the Constitution of the United States of America, and your awareness of the responsibility incumbent on each citizen to exercise the proper rights. And with this, I'm so honored on behalf of Tampa City Council Chairman Citro, Mr. Vieira, Ms. Hurtak, and Mr. Goods to say congratulations to you for doing this #1 finishing, and thank you for what you do. And just say a few words, because if I let you do the Constitution, you don't have to do the Constitution.
Oh, really? You want me to say a few
Well, if you want to say a few words.
No, just say thank you.
Thanks.
That's a few words.
Back up at the podium here. Councilman Vieira. No, right there, right next to Councilman Miranda. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good to see you and good to see my friends here tonight. And thank you, Councilman Miranda. You always take such a wonderful interest in this contest, it's great. It's great to see the American Legion do what the American Legion does, especially with our young people. I always say that our young people really have got to know the greatness of our great country that is here, and thanks in part to the men and women at groups like American Legion, and so many good things. We hear a lot about what's wrong with our country. And we got to hear that stuff so that we can make it right. But I always say, like a former president said, that what's wrong with America can be fixed and can be healed by what's right with America. And the things that you studied and that you were examined on, et cetera, really form the basis of so much that's right about our great country. So just wanted to salute you for that, and thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I just want to thank the American Legion for doing this. I have to say I'm a little disappointed that Post 111 didn't have anybody. That's our Legion, but congratulations to you. And my husband is a former speech professor, and doing these types of speeches and working with folks to be able to present speeches will send you so far in life. The being able to get up and talk in front of people, being able to remember a speech, remember points you want to share. This will take you so very far. You have no idea right now what a great skill this is, and what a great honor it is to be to win this contest. So congratulations, and best of luck on future endeavors, which I promise you this will come in handy for.
Councilman Goods.
Well, congratulations. I love when young people succeed. It makes it better for us all. Is there another level? Is there a national competition still too?
Yes,
So-
it's a 5-tiered event.
Okay.
So we're a post level, we're number 1, then there's a district. The district's basically Hillsborough County. Then we have what's called an area level, that's Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas. And then the next is the state level, the department we call it, and then the national level. National contest is gonna go on next month.
Well, I wish you best of luck at the Nationals. Best of luck. And again, thank you for being here, and thank you, Commander.
Councilman Goods and I belong to a fraternal organization where everything is taught mouth to ear. Nothing is written down. I congratulate you on remembering your speeches. But what's more important is anyone could recite words. You've learned what those words mean, and what they mean to not only our country, but what they mean to you and your generation. And I thank you for taking the time to learn the significance of those words. And when they were written by our forefathers, they still stand true today. Thank you, congratulations, and Godspeed on the next event.
The presentation for the silver medal winner is Emily Peak. However, there's a story behind this, what happened, and I think Frank Smith and myself will talk about it, and you can listen to this because it is a little heartwarming. It is with great pleasure to present Emily Peak. The City Council of Tampa, Florida presents to you this commendation for earning the silver medal at the 2022-2023 USA Post 5 American Legion Oratorical Contest, January 14, 2023, as well as for your outstanding presentation on the 15th District and Central Area Contest, culminating with the performances of the youngest contest, earning the bronze medal in the Department of Florida contest conducted in the state of Florida. Let me stop here, because when this young lady finished first, and this young lady finished second, and this young lady was supposed to participate, but this young lady couldn't make it, and the one that finished second went all the way to the state and finished third.
That's the youngest one in the competition.
The youngest one in the competition. So sometimes just trying, and you did your best, and more than likely you're going to be much better than me. You are now. But I'm just letting you know that these things are all of us in this country deserve individuals like yourself in the neighborhood. Both of you are outstanding citizens, and I can tell just by your smile on your face that you're going to be something real soon, real quick.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much for having all of us today. It really means a lot.
You are welcome. Councilman Vieira.
Just again, salute you for the hard work that you put in. It takes a lot of a lot of spirit to get up there and speak in front of people and whatnot, whether they're young age or middle age or whatever it may be. So well done. God bless you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
And again, congratulations. To go third in the state is very impressive. And like I said before, these are skills that you're going to use forever. Just the ability to write a speech, the ability to give it, and to get it up in front of people and be able to share that. So congratulations. This is what you will remember this honor for a long time.
Thank you, Council, very much. I really
Council-
appreciate the time you've given us.
Councilman Goods,
Oh,
you
I'm
want to
sorry.
say something?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
again, congratulations to us too. It takes a lot to get in front of people to talk and speak, so again, congratulations.
Again, congratulations for not only speaking the words, but learning them. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shelby, do you need 2 seconds to explain our,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Good evening, Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. First of all, let me begin by saying that if you have had any ex parte communications with anybody with reference to tonight's hearings, that before the hearing you disclose with whom that communication occurred and the sum and substance of that communication. If you could have a motion now to receive and file the written communications which have been made available to the public.
we have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Vieira. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you, sir. And finally, a motion to waive the rules to allow the continued use of CMT, Communications Media Technology.
We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Vieira. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Yes, Councilman.
Apologize to my colleagues and the public that I'm late tonight, but I did want to say one thing for whoever on staff is keeping track of when I'm a few minutes late at the meetings. Apparently 60% of the people in Tampa don't care, so you wasted your time. Thank you.
It's just for my leaving early.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much. No, just to make everybody aware, I will be leaving. My son has a play this evening that I have to attend in about 45 minutes. So my sincere apologies. I sent a memo for that. Thank you.
Wow.
Good evening, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Are you ready for the agenda
Yes,
cleanup?
ma'am.
Okay, great. The first cleanup is item number 2, Tcc 2229. The applicant is requesting a continuance to be heard on April 13th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. I believe the applicant is here and able to comment on the continuance if needed.
Good evening, Council. Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive. Items 2 and items 11 are a rezoning and map amendment that we're requesting to move to April 13th to tune out, just finalize a couple things with the neighbors. That will be our first and only continuance request. Thanks.
Anybody?
I was going to separately address the items, so.
No,
That's where I'm going to go with this. Mr. Hudson, can you come back up to the podium? Ms. Barnes, you were speaking to agenda item number 2 was the first one that was asking for the continuance?
Correct.
Okay, and agenda item number 2 and 11 were going to be heard together, or were they separate? Going to be heard separate?
You go.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. They are separate agenda items, so I think we should address item number 2 first.
Yes, exactly. Thank
And
you
then-
very much. File number TACPA 22-29 has been asked to be continued to April 13th, 2023. Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak to the continuance only? The continuance only. We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Carlson to continue file number TACPA 22-29 till April 13th. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that's 5:01 PM.
5:01 PM?
Thank you.
Annie Barnes Development Coordination, item number 11 is REZ 2315. The applicant is requesting a continuance to April 13th, 2023 at 5:01 PM. And again, the applicant is here to speak on the continuance if needed.
Applicants.
Hello again. Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive, would request to continue this to April 13th. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to file number REZ 23-15 to continuance only? We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Annie Barnes Development Coordination. The next item is item number 4, REZ 2269. The applicant is requesting to withdraw this application.
We have a motion by Councilman Goods to withdraw file number REZ 22-69, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Forgive me for saying this, but I don't believe we had a motion to open the public hearings tonight, did we? Madam Clerk, I don't believe we did, Council.
Well, we have one now. Move to
Yes.
open the public hearing.
Motion by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So all these, for the record, all these items then are continued public hearings by unanimous consent, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8 is Annie Barnes Development Coordination. Item number 8 is REZ 2308. The applicant is requesting this item be heard directly after item number 1 tonight. I believe the applicant is here if needed to speak on that item.
Thank you. Any other changes to our agenda?
No.
With regard to that, Mr. Chairman, is that council's pleasure to move up item number 8 to follow item number 3? No, excuse me, not, but number 1?
I was planning on doing that anyways, but we have a
Yeah.
motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Then we will hear agenda number 1, file number TACPA 22-26.
And Mr. Chairman, before the staff begins and the presentation is made, just a reminder that item number 1 is, like item number 3, not quasi-judicial. They are legislative matters. Thank you.
Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting on Tampa Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment 2226. Can you see that? Okay. It's located at 808 North Armenia Avenue and 2402 West State Street.
IT, can we have that up on our monitors, please? Thank you. Thank you.
It's privately initiated, small scale, approximately 0.26 acres, and the request in front of you is to go from residential 20 to neighborhood mixed use 24. This is the site on the general location map located here. It's in the central Tampa Planning District, the West Tampa Urban Village, and the Armory Gardens neighborhood. This is an aerial of the subject site and the surrounding area. You can see the site outlined here, and it's highlighted in yellow, and it's at the southwest corner of North Armenia Avenue and West State Street. On the eastern portion of West Armenia Avenue, the development pattern is a mix of residential and commercial uses. And to the west of North Armenia Avenue is predominantly residential uses. This is the Foundry Apartments right here, and directly to the north is an office use. 1 block south is the Villa Brothers Park, and this parcel right here is owned by the Florida Armory Board, and to the north and west of the site are single-family uses. This is the subject site from Armenia Avenue looking west. This is from the subject site on West State Street looking south. This is looking west on West State Street. Subject site is to the left. This is looking east on West State Street. The subject site is to the right. This is looking north on North Armenia Avenue at the intersection of West State Street and North Armenia. And this is an example of the single-family residential uses on West State Street. This is the adopted future land use map. The subject site is here, and it's represented by the residential 20 designation. To the east of the subject site is the community commercial 35 district. To the southeast is the community mixed use 35. To the south here is recreational open space, and you can see to the north and west of the subject site is also residential 20. This is the subject site here, and it's represented by the proposed neighborhood mixed use 24 designation. Here are the potential impacts for the future land use designation. Currently, under the R20 designation, the site can be considered for 5 dwelling units or just over 5,000 square feet of non-residential uses if the subject site meets locational criteria. On the potential, it could go up to 6 units and slightly over 11,000 square feet of residential or non-residential uses. The site could use FAR to develop either residential or non-residential uses. And the request would allow neighborhoods serving commercial uses by right without requiring the site to meet locational criteria. And additionally, the request would introduce the consideration of limited commercial general uses on the site. The Planning Commission found it consistent with multiple aspects of the comprehensive plan. The request would promote a range of uses and mixed-use development patterns in the city's urban villages. It would promote compatible development and redevelopment to sustain neighborhoods and ensure the social and economic health of the city. And it would promote densities and a mixture of uses that support walking and transit near employment concentrations, residential services, and amenities. And the request would also ensure that an additional supply of housing is available to meet the needs of Tampa's present and future populations. And finally, is consistent with directing the city's greatest share of growth to the city's urban villages. And with that in mind, the Planning Commission recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And this concludes my presentation, if you have any questions.
Any questions for staff? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of council. My name is Mark Bentley. Before I proceed, Kate, do we need to get sworn in on these legislative matters? Okay, just want to clarify that. I'm here this evening representing Rabbi Mendy Drubrowski and his nonprofit organization who is seeking a change to allow neighborhood mixed-use designation at the subject property. As you heard, the proposed amendment's been determined to be compatible and consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the city's comprehensive plan. It's received a broad spectrum of support, specifically your long-range planning staff, the staff of the Planning Commission, unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, as well as community support. It's my understanding that some of the supporters are here in attendance and intend to address council this evening. Also, letters of support have been submitted to council, and those are on the record at this point in time. What I'd like to do is turn the presentation over to Mr. Ryan Manassi, our planner, and then after Ryan, the rabbi appreciated the opportunity to address council and talk a little bit about his vision for the project. Thank you.
Ryan?
Good
evening, City Council. Ryan Manassi with Johnson Pope, 401 East Jackson Street, Suite 3100. Thank you for having me tonight, and thank you for staff for their presentation on this plan amendment request. Again, we're here requesting an amendment from the existing residential 20 to the proposed neighborhood mixed-use 24 category for the property located at 808 North Armenia Avenue and 2402 West State Street. Again, the site is around 0.27 acres or 11,325 square feet, and it's currently zoned as a planned development for a place of religious assembly. Running concurrent to this amendment request is a PD for place of religious assembly and daycare use, which you'll hear on the next item. The plan amendment before you would allow my client or our client through a PD to request an increase in floor area for the proposed place of religious assembly and daycare use. These residential support uses are compatible with the comprehensive plan and land development code. Just a little history on the neighborhood mixed use 24 category. It's a relatively new category as far as the plan and seeing it before you, but it's intended for properties located in an urban village such as the subject site. This category was created in order to allow for limited neighborhood mixed uses to be located within these neighborhood residential neighborhoods. Now this slide shows the subject area, which is outlined in yellow, and the blue shaded area signifies commercial or institutional uses along with large residential multifamily development, which is immediately to the east of the subject site. Our client wishes to expand their already approved PD and add a daycare use in order to accommodate the community needs to provide appropriate residential support uses. I'd like to point out that the approving of this plan amendment would provide for an appropriate transition from the existing community commercial 35, which is shown there in the red, to the residential 20 category, which would be to the west. Currently, they butt each other in existence. Our request with the residential support uses further supports a transition to the RM16 zoning district, which is again to that west. Also, I'd like to point out that Armenia Avenue is an arterial roadway and a transit emphasis corridor. The comprehensive plan identifies Armenia Avenue as a corridor suitable for redevelopment, which is in line with our request. Now, on this slide, the blue shaded areas signify existing public, quasi-public, and institutional land uses. The stars identify a place of religious assembly use, which is in line with our proposed use. You can see this type of use is further rooted to the west, well into the residential neighborhood. Our request is adjacent, again, to that arterial roadway, which supports this type of future land use request and is comparable and compatible with the existing development along Armenia Avenue. Now, this slide just shows you a mix of zoning districts within the immediate area. The area outlined in yellow is the subject site, and what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that there are uses allowed in the neighborhood mixed-use 24 category that can and may already exist in the surrounding zoning districts. This request further supports the type of residential support uses we are proposing. And now I'd like to introduce Rabbi Mende. He's here to briefly discuss his vision, and then I'll come back up and conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Concerning the rabbi, he intends to speak, but that's on the next item, because if you get into specifics, that gets a little far afield from the plan amendment. So he'll have his opportunity then, if you don't mind.
Any questions for the petitioners? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to agenda item number 1, file number Tcc Pm 22-26? And if you are going to speak, please form a line on my left, your right, and come up one at a time. Please state your name, and remember, you have 3 minutes to speak.
I have not been sworn in. Would you like?
You don't need to be sworn in.
Okay.
If I can,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
council
sorry,
members.
sir, just before you begin, there are 2 separate issues here. One is the land use, the future land use map amendment, and that is not quasi-judicial, that's legislative. Should that move forward, then item number 8 would then be the rezoning. There are 2 separate issues, and that you should keep that in mind, please. Yes.
Councilman Carlos.
Just for the, for transparency, I had Rabbi Mendy speak at the invocation this morning. I didn't know that he had an item coming up tonight, and my legislative aide set that up. If that's a conflict, I'll step out, but I had no conversations with him in any way about this project.
Well, thank you for sharing that for the purposes of the record. Let me ask you this. Again, and a reminder, council specifically, we've talked about this in the past. What you have before you is a land use issue. And who is requesting it, frankly, is not relevant to the matter. You have to look at the parameters and the criteria in order for which you to base your decision. That being the case, and the fact that Rabbi Mendy, my understanding, did appear this morning based on what you said and may be known to you, is there anybody who believes that that relationship would be able to keep you from being fair and impartial? If there is anybody who would have trouble with that and not able to be fair and impartial and base your decision solely on the record, if you would just speak now, otherwise then we'll take that as everybody is comfortable with that. Is there anybody who wishes to say anything? Thank you for that for the record, and I believe that would, Mr. Bentley, did you want to address anything, or are you satisfied with that?
I'm fine, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you.
Ms. Sanchez.
Mr. Chairman, there is a speaker waiver form. I will see. I see 6 names on them. If you are present, do please acknowledge that. Debbie Zommerman. Thank you. Adrienne Laramie. Did I say that correctly? Okay. Thank you. Jerome Adebeck? Adcock. Okay, thank you. Janice Katz. Thank you. Sharon Genuardi, thank you, and Lana D. Gonzalez, thank you. That's 6 minutes plus the 3 for the speaker. That's a total of 9.
You can relax. I don't think I'm going to use that time, but I just wanted to put it in there. Good evening, City Council. Sandy D. Diego Sanchez, 2705 Fig Street, Army Garments Community. This is way above my pay grade, sort of like David and Goliath. But I'm here to try and convince you that the ordinance amending the 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan at 808 North Armenia and 2402 West State Street from resident R20 to neighborhood use NMU 24 is detrimental to the Army Gardens community. It's going to be a detriment. This is a massive building. The applicant is trying to squeeze into the existing area. There are no other buildings with this large a footprint on the west side of Armenia. This amendment does nothing for the neighborhood, and the approval of this amendment would only exacerbate the serious issues that are not included in the comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry, if we can. Thank you. Ms. Sanchez, with regard to the mass and scale and the size of the property, that would be something that would be with regard to the zoning. This would be the future land use. If you could focus perhaps on the changes as to what should be there, or excuse me, as to what is there versus what they're asking for.
I'm sorry, I don't understand you.
What, if I, respectfully, if, Ms. Wells, did you want to be able to say anything for the record, or you don't think that would be appropriate for you to say something? Just to be able to inform council, just so that they'll be able to, for the record, be able to assess what's needed.
Kate Wells, Legal Department. Just very generally, with the comprehensive plan amendment, council is looking at the differences in uses that would be permitted by the existing future land use designation and the proposed land use designation. I think I'm going to wait until Ms. Sanchez can hear, since I'm trying to explain this for her benefit as well.
I'm sorry.
So the purpose, I'll start again. The purpose of looking at these map amendments is to consider, council's role is to consider the uses and the density or intensity allowed by the current land use designation versus what is being proposed. So we always counsel, city council, to consider the maximum development potential proposed by, in this case, the NMU 24 designation. What is the FAR of that designation versus the current FAR? What are the uses that would be permitted under the NMU 24 that may not currently be permitted? And then consider that maximum development potential and those uses in comparison to the existing neighborhood and the compatibility. So a lot of those items were addressed in the Planning Commission's report with respect to the potential development and the uses. So at this stage, if members of the public wish to address council, we ask them to focus on those more conceptual discussions that occur with a map amendment versus what could be specifically developed here under the rezoning, since the rezoning application has not yet been opened. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Okay.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
And I just want to state for the record, this is why we as a council have talked over and over again about splitting the comprehensive plans and the rezonings, because the public has a difficult time understanding them, and it doesn't allow us to look at the future land use as future land use, because we know we have a rezoning coming behind it. So I'm going to ask again for staff to consider splitting these up so we're not hearing them on the same night. Thank you.
Ms. Sanchez, your 6 minutes starts now.
Okay.
9 minutes.
9 minutes,
9
okay.
Excuse me, 9 minutes.
As I said, this is way above my pay grade. So, and I said, I feel like David and Goliath. You are presented with one side of the picture. If we live by the comp plans, urban villagers scenarios all would be roses. That is not the reality of this situation. This text amendment will give the applicant the ability to increase their square footage from 5,662 square feet of non-residential uses to 11,325 square feet of non-residential uses or residential uses. That's a very, very important line there, because what it does is it attracts more people to come into our neighborhood. This PD that wants to be turned into an MNU 24 would cause it to attract people into the neighborhood for high-density construction and high-density multifamily housings. This is a red flag for us. Setting this precedent will invite more massive structures into a neighborhood that is trying to hang on to the last few one-story single-family houses, am I allowed to say that? That used to be affordable housing. We are usually seeing an increase, we are actually seeing an increase in one-story single-family homes that are being refurbished. If this amendment passes, it will set a precedent to be used on the west side of Armenia. It can only attract irresponsible growth. The applicant for the comp changes, and I don't know if I can say this, appears to have a loving and caring congregation with strong social groups of all ages and an educational program, and it appears to be a loving and caring community. We would love to welcome them into Armory Gardens. But something I can't say, but we would like to keep our community safe. Uncontrolled high density would jeopardize the safety of our neighborhood. Upmost in our mind is keeping our community and the surrounding community safe. The uncontrolled density that this text amendment would offer would be a detriment to our neighborhood and add to the serious condition that already exists. We had hoped that the applicant would have come forward and talked to us and try to understand our position. Neither the applicant nor his attorneys have made any attempt to contact us, and that, even though that is not a requirement. But you would think that someone that thinks they are going to bring wonderful things to our neighborhood would want to let us know about those wonderful things. And by the way, I did meet with Rabbi Dabrowski for 20 minutes on February 28th, for 20 minutes, and it was only because the land use staff encouraged him to call. Otherwise, we would not have heard him. To protect our community and the other communities around us that are trying to keep their quality of life against an onslaught of irresponsible growth, we ask you to deny this. I have a small presentation.
It's up.
It's on the screen. Do you need to, you have something on the screen, do you need to advance that in any way?
Oh. On the, how do I advance?
It's on here.
Oh,
That goes
how
to the
can
next
this be on there?
They have it.
No.
Oh, that's something, you don't want to show that? What's on the screen? Okay, then.
That goes with the other one.
That's,
Please
that's
take it
number
off.
8. If we could take that off, please. Okay, thank you. So so you, if CTTV could put what's on the overhead, please. Okay, now it's available for you
Okay.
to.
I apologize, these are not in order of the ones you have, because I dropped them as I was coming in, but there are only a few.
Mr. Benson, I don't know if you can assist. Is there up? Here we go. Where's the light?
Okay? Okay. After looking through these 6, it looks like I can only show you 2 or 3, so they'll be easy to find. This one is just Army Gardens, but I want to bring your attention to this that they have continually been using. Please notice on the red, which is to the west of Armenia, that's where the community commercial is located. There are no MNUs on the east side, the west side of Armenia. Most of the community commercial is on the right side, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. Let's see, what else can I show you? This is one of the slides that they used. The goals and objectives and policies. I'll take you to the second one, which says urban villages contain most of the following uses would typically make up what is considered traditional and livable community. Single family, multifamily residential, neighborhoods serving commercial schools, parks, and central valleys. Mass transit and safe walkable pathways that connect people to all these villages. These do not exist in Armory Gardens. We have no sidewalks. Ensure that development projects in urban villages are designed for pedestrian traffic and contextual support and citywide transit. Again, there are no sidewalks. I ask you again, I'm sorry I had to limit my presentation to things that I could and could not say, but the bottom line is this jeopardizes our community tremendously. And I also said we would love to welcome Rabbi Dabrowski and all of his congregation, but there are still too many things that have been unanswered. Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
I know that you had a speaker waiver form, so you're speaking on behalf of many other individuals. Just a suggestion before we continue, and in case this were to be denied, or if it heads that way or whatever, I'd hate to see, you know, anybody get hurt in this situation. Meaning, you had mentioned that they had not reached out to you and talked to you. Before we proceed, would the petitioner consider maybe continuing this to communicate better? Again, a denial is very expensive. It's very, takes a lot of time, whatever. I just, you know, before we head that route, if we are to head that route, I don't know if better communications needs to be had. So, just a thought.
And it's very expensive for Armory Gardens too. What I can't say to you is, for example, because of the heavy traffic in our neighborhood and the speeding to our neighbors, we have children who've been hit. We have bicyclists that have been killed. It all has to do with more and more traffic that comes into the neighborhood. The comprehensive plan does not address that. Like I said, if we lived by the comprehensive plan, all would be roses. That's not the reality of the neighborhoods today. Anything else?
Anyone else in chambers who would like to speak to file number Tcc Pm 22-26?
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Pointer. I do not live close to this property, but I do want to point out that we have asked for these comp plan amendments to be unpaired with the rezonings, and I think this has been a very good example as to why. I think that we really need to reconsider. This is a good time for the council to reconsider this whole process of comp plan changes. We employ some very, very smart folks in this city who do land use and planning for this city. We have a future land use map. Why is it that people continue to purchase property and then they want to do something that they're not allowed to do with that property? I don't understand the concept. There are many, many other places in the state, in the country, where if you buy a piece of land, that's what you can do with it when you buy it, not later on. Why are we paying Stephen Benson? Why are we paying Melissa and, oh, I'm forgetting somebody. But why are we paying these people thousands of dollars to write ourselves a comprehensive plan, a new one, when every time we turn around, every Tom, Dick, and Harry can come in here and say, oh, I don't like what you said I can do with this property? It doesn't make any sense. And I'd like for everybody else who speaks about this particular situation to address where they live. I've admitted that I don't live next to it. They've already said they have lots and lots of positive comments. Are they from the neighbors? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Is there anyone else in chambers who would like to speak to this? Do we have anyone online? Rebuttal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Concerning this issue about community outreach, what we had done is we sent a letter to Ms. Sanchez's organization and didn't receive any response. And then we were contacted by staff that Ms. Sanchez had approached staff and had some concerns. The rabbi immediately contacted her that very day and then sat down with her, I believe, maybe the next day. He's going to speak in a second. Ms. Sanchez is very knowledgeable, sophisticated, and experienced about the process. Probably knows more about it than a lot of these land use lawyers up here. So I thought it was a little bit disingenuous that we didn't reach out. And I wanted the rabbi to talk a little bit about that it would be futile actually to talk to this organization anymore. But I want to emphasize with the council, before I turn over to the rabbi, is here again, everybody who weighed in on this, you have this new, relatively new land use category called neighborhood mixed use. And this fits this, application fits this to a T, the goals and objectives of that category. The property's on an arterial roadway, okay? It allows for a transition into a residential area. All the professionals who have reviews have weighed in and recommended approval, including the Planning Commission. So with that being said, there's a couple other points, but I just want to get, the rabbi wanted to address the council on this issue about discussions with the Armory.
Good evening, everybody.
Your name, sir.
Mendy Dabrowski. Do you want a title? You have the bio from this morning.
Your name is fine.
Number one, I think it's important to highlight the fact that this petition is being submitted with the goal of serving that community, whether they recognize that or not, and that's what NMU's designed to do. And the organization, that's the application, is an organization built around that expressed purpose. Not in name only, it's an organization that's proven, with a proven track record over the last 14 and a half years, that we service the people in our communities. And this is no different. So while, yes, there is definitely some challenges and some concerns, that is a proven record that we can stand on, number one. I don't want to ask for a continuance. When I reached out to Mrs. Sanchez, she initially told me that she did not want to meet with me. I have the recorded response. Then she called me back and said some time opened up, and I met with her immediately. I did not get the consensus from her that she was willing to understand why we had made changes, which were directly connected with life safety and other issues, which you will see when we make our second presentation. That was of no interest to her, what the changes were, which I think would provide a lot of understanding to whether this change is actually related to welcoming in significantly more people, or it is a change that was made for practical considerations because the first design didn't work. And to address the previous concern, why people buy properties with the intention of then going and changing the land use, that is not the case here. And the biggest proof of that is that when this parcel was purchased more than 5 years ago, and a rezoning was had at that time, there was no request to change any planned commission whatsoever. Our goal was to operate within that guideline. We went through the rezoning process. We worked with city staff to try and facilitate that process. We had major life safety issues and challenges trying to stay within that guideline. That is what precipitated us having these conversations with staff and precipitated us going down this double change. So it was not our intention to upend the map. We're not looking to dramatically change the character of the neighborhood. In fact, as I expressed to Ms. Sanchez, I look forward to working with her because I look forward to being a resident in Armory Gardens. I'm currently exploring moving my family to the immediate area. So I hope that that context helps understand that while, yes, I see there is a larger question about, as Councilman Hurtak addressed, putting these two issues together, which is beyond my pay grade, in this specifically was not designed to upend that map. It was born out of necessity. That's what brought us back here to the council today. Thank you.
Chair, could I have 30 more seconds? Just to
30
wrap-
more seconds.
Ryan? Just touch on a couple points about the density.
Sure. Ryan Manassi for the record. As you saw from your professional planning staff, the density would be, I think it was one more dwelling unit. That's what's currently existing. It does not set precedent. As you know, each case and property stands on its own merits. As far as there was mention of CC 35, this property, our request is for NMU 24, a neighborhood mixed use category. There are sidewalks along Armenia Avenue, and in the rezoning that's subsequent, we would be providing new sidewalks on State Street. And the uses that are allowed in the NMU 24 category are already approved in the existing PD. So with that, we would respectfully request your approval.
Does that complete your presentation and your rebuttal?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ask your question, Councilman Maniscalco.
So it's going from what to what? I saw it earlier, but I heard one more dwelling unit, but what is the square footage difference? What's the difference in this?
If you want staff to address it, that's.
Massive building. So how much different would it be from what's already allowed?
All right, Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff, let me get that slide and put that back up there for you. So, under the existing R20 designation, they could have 5 dwelling units or slightly over 5,000 square feet of non-residential uses. And under the proposed NMU 24 designation, it could be 6 dwelling units or slightly over 11,000 square feet of residential or non-residential uses.
That's the maximum allowed, 11,325 if this change is approved.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that's what they're asking for.
Correct.
We don't know and we can't talk about it yet. Thank you very much. This is very frustrating. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Is there a difference in height that's allowed under the, that would be a zoning issue, not a plan issue, right? It's just the square footage that's allowed, but that's the only difference?
Emily Phelan. The height is regulated at the time of zoning. We don't regulate the height at this
So
stage.
it's just, the only difference is the one unit and then about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet?
Correct.
Councilwoman?
But this doesn't change the usage that's allowed.
It has the potential to introduce some limited commercial general uses. City staff can speak more to what is the difference between all of those, but they are very similar in what they
Mr.
allow.
Benson, if you wouldn't mind explaining the difference.
The R10 allows.
R20.
I know, I'm sorry, the R20 that's along the corridor, it does allow commercial, but only if it meets the locational criteria, which this does, because it's on Armenia. That's why there are some offices, like in converted homes along that stretch of Armenia, but the map reflects the residential designation. So in the proposed land use category, it does expand the number of the amount of commercial uses and the intensity of commercial uses that can occur by right without locational criteria. So it's very similar, but there are additional uses, commercial, that could occur under the NMU as opposed to the R20.
Okay, because Mr. Manassi said that the usage is already allowed.
The specific use that they might be seeking as part of the rezoning, which isn't part of this.
Yeah, he just said that the usage is already allowed, so okay, thank you.
Yeah, elaborate on that. The usage that currently is approved is a religious place of assembly.
Thank you.
So they both would allow the
Okay,
same thing.
thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Mr. Benson, sorry, can I ask you another question? Does anybody have the plan, the layout? My question is, there's the part that is adjacent to the road, but then there's another part that hooks around 3 single-family homes. Is there any kind of rule that prevents that? That seems like an unusual configuration. Yeah, is it unusual that is that 4 homes or 5? I can't tell. But it hooks around that, so you have.
Oh, right here.
Commercial. The brown, is that single-family homes?
Yeah.
So is that unusual? I don't remember seeing one that they're kind of encapsulated in this building.
By the park?
That's the park.
This is Vila Brothers Park. It's
Oh,
not
I'm
labeled,
sorry,
but-
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that, yeah.
That's what I get for
The
not
green
having
is
enough.
the recreational
That's what I
open
get for
space.
not having enough sleep.
Stephen is
So-
office to the south and to the north, if you want to tell them.
Never mind, thank you.
Councilman Carlson, to the north and south of the subject property are office developments, even though they're Res 20 and they appear to be residential.
Which is permitted under the current future land use. Thanks.
Any further questions? Thank you. We have a motion to close by Councilman Vieira, seconded by?
Second.
By Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? What is the pleasure of council?
I'd really hate to kill this whole project. And that's what's frustrating is they're allowed so much but the square footage difference is what concerns me, because it's more than double what's already allowed. And we don't know what the new project is gonna be. It could be 6,000 square feet, it could be 11,000 square feet. I will read it, just to read it and see where it goes, and we'll go from there. So I have an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, future land use element, future land use map for the property located at 808 North Armenia Avenue and 2402 West State Street, from residential 20 R20 to residential mixed use 24 NMU 24, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Vieira. Any further discussion?
Thank you,
Councilman
Chairman.
Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. What Mr. Maniscalco said and what Ms. Hurtak said is different, but it's the same, because we have to hear something that we don't know what the other something's gonna be. And it's like playing pool, and you're playing with half a stick, because you don't know where the other half of the stick is at. And so Mr. Maniscalco was right on tune, and Ms. Hurtak was right on tune, because of the perplexity of not of the development itself, but of the conceptual idea of the neighborhood saying, what coming here? They don't know. And the plan that I see meets all the qualifications, however, that unknown factor could cause the chilling effect of what Mr. Maniscalco addressed. It's a possibility of going from something to something larger. That doesn't meet all the requirements, and I'm not talking specifically that way. They can't say I say something out of order. I'm not talking in specifics. Does it meet A, B, C, and D that will be required? I don't know, because we can't see that. So these are the things that I'm looking at. And again, I was very broad. I hope I was broad enough, Ms. Wells, to say, does it meet something that I didn't give in any specific way?
Councilman Goods.
Wow. Miranda, wow, huh? I know that, and because we can't force anybody to rethink or do anything, but I think we have two good organizations here that I believe there are probably fighting for the same causes, a good community, to help good people in their communities. Again, Rabbi, I mean, I can't force any, but I think maybe another conversation might be had with the community, so they'll know. Again, we're in a tight shell here, and and again, it's up to you and your Mr. Bentley. But I wish you before we can make a vote or send it, before we upset two parties, which I don't want to upset. And I wish we can reconsider, and you maybe ask for a continuance, and you talk with the community so they'll know what's coming. Give them an idea what your vision is. That's just my thought this time. I don't know where it may go, but right now I can hear by the tone of this council, it's a tough one.
Motion to reopen.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira to reopen the hearing, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to speak out of order, but we can't ask for continuance. The neighborhood can't ask for continuance. Only the person who made the application can ask for, if they want to.
Well, your hearing is open. Whatever happens now, ultimately,
Yeah,
we're going to give Mr. Bentley
The other thing I would like to add, the other thing I'd like to add for the record is that we, just like with anything, we're approving the plan change, and we can't, if somebody's putting in a store and they're putting in a high-end retail store versus, that has low traffic versus a low-end fast food store, we can only approve based on the land use or the comprehensive plan. And so once we designate the comprehensive plan, we can't base it on the actual use of it. And so as much as we might in seeing who the applicant is, want to support it, we can't make the decision based on that because we don't know what the future use of that property would be, and there's a neighborhood next to it that is obviously concerned about overdevelopment.
Mr. Chair, may we address council?
Surely.
Rabbi?
I'd like to address the idea of the continuance, which in theory is perfectly normal and acceptable. I'm a very level-headed guy most of the time, and I think my reputation precedes me as somebody that seeks to broker peace and bring people together quite clearly. But I don't believe that a continuance is going to lead to any dramatic change in this plan. Part of the challenge is that, and this is not by my doing, is that these two items are seen together but apart. So your concern about making the change because you don't understand yet why we're making that change obviously makes you hesitant to make that change, which I completely understand. But when I tried to explain that to some of the representatives here, they didn't want to hear it. They had no interest in seeing the plan changes. They had no interest in seeing the design changes. They had no interest in discussing what precipitated us to go through this 6-month process over again, which, believe me, I had no interest in doing. Costs us money and time and so on and so forth. So that's what leads me to believe that I understand that they want to protect the integrity of their community as they should, 100%. But I don't believe that a continuance will lead them to better understand why we precipitated these changes and that it's not designed to increase the amount of people coming into the facility, but rather to address significant life safety issues that we had with the fire marshal when we went through our zoning the first time around. The first iteration of the design, what was flawed with it, and why we had to make significant changes. Things like bringing stairwells inside the building, right? And so on. That added 3,000 square feet. And so I don't want to get into the details because I know that's in the next phase. But my point is that this process, I understand, creates a challenge, and that's why I understand your hesitation. But I don't think that a continuance is going to lead the people in the community to have a different perspective, because when I met with their representative who spoke here, she had no interest in looking at the design. I came with my laptop ready to present. The reason why the meeting was 20 minutes is because she said there's nothing else to say. She told me I have to set a precedent, was her exact words. And the precedent is against this kind of expansion, which I understand, that's her prerogative. But that tells me that this is not a question of we didn't have time to meet, we didn't have time to talk, we can work it out. It means to say is you represent a certain development and progression that we do not want to see here in this community. And again, I'm not faulting her for that. But I don't think that a continuance is going to address that concern. And that's why I think in the interest of just pushing off this project, rather than now we're ready to move forward, thank God, pushing off the project unnecessarily, costing more money, which is what will happen for a nonprofit, I don't think that's expeditious. I don't think that's the correct move.
Councilman Carlos.
One, I'd like to hear Ms. Sanchez's response to that, but also, I know the attorneys know that, but could the staff just explain what happens if we say no?
If you can,
I understand.
Mr. Chair.
I believe Ms. Sanchez already had her time to speak. But if you want to ask that question, and are you wanting to have a sidebar with Ms. Wells, Mr. Shelby?
I certainly would like, unless there's any objection, I'd like 5 minutes to be able to discuss with Ms. Wells. Again, what I'd ask for council is to not discuss this during those 5 minutes, unless council does not wish to.
We're going to lose a city council member here in a second. Mr. Vieira has to leave.
I should have left probably 10 minutes ago. I'm trying to stay for the vote, but I mean, if you want to do that, I don't want to delay the process at all. I mean, but I was trying to do that. But I don't. If there's something that is necessary to be done for the process.
Well, I will answer the question. Well, I'd like that, but I will answer the question that's been posed. That and staff can talk about this with regard to the rezoning. I don't believe the rezoning is able to go forward if this future land use map amendment is denied. And I'd like the staff to confirm that for the record, please.
Kate Wells, Legal Department. The rezoning application that is under item 8 on your agenda requires the NMU 24 land use designation in order to move forward. So if the comp plan amendment in item 1 is not approved today, if it's denied, then the applicant has the opportunity to either withdraw the rezoning application, or this council would then have no choice but to deny the rezoning application because it necessarily requires the NMU 24 designation.
But it's just a comment, just for the record, when we dealt with the Midtown project, we made as a condition of PD approval or rezoning approval, obtaining the land use change, okay? So that was my suggestion is continue this hearing, hear the zoning case, make the zoning approval contingent upon the land use change, okay? It's just a suggestion just to keep this thing moving. Thank you.
Mr. Shelby?
Yes, well, that being said, Council, if you would be so kind as to allow me 5 minutes to be able to work through these processes.
Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 5 minutes?
But can we also ask Mr. Bentley, that he's not going to be here for the zoning hearing, so what do you want to do then?
The client would like to move forward. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
Please don't discuss the matters, Council. Thank you.
Council is back in session. Roll call, please.
Carlson? Carlson? Vieira? Maniscalco? Hurtak? Goods? Miranda? Citro?
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Where am I going to first? Am I going to Mr. Bentley or am I going to Mr. Shelby?
Well, Council, I just thank you for the opportunity for that time to address some process questions and to get clear. With this process being set up the way it is, Mr. Bentley had raised a suggestion that that we would move to the rezoning with this being continued, and it's been agreed upon. I agree with Ms. Wells in her position, and it's the same as my position, which is that has not been done. What you have before you is you have this. This needs to move forward, and if this moves forward affirmatively, then you will be able to get to the rezoning. But the decision now, the threshold question, is what you want to do as a legislative matter with this comprehensive plan, future land use map amendment.
Councilman Goods.
All right, so Mr. Shelby, we have a process in place, which we now, a lot of things we feel some of these processes are kind of flawed a little bit. But since we have a process now, let's say we move this forward and we go to number 8 in the rezoning. At that point in rezoning, this council has the right to put stipulations on the rezoning. They're correct or incorrect?
You have to listen to the case and listen to what the evidence is, and then you have the opportunity to discuss what the issues are and have and listen to what the neighbor's position is, and then have the opportunity to see if you can address those potentially adverse impacts. And again, that decision, you have to rely on the competent substantial evidence in the record, as opposed to a legislative matter, which is a different standard.
Thank you, sir.
And that is the fairly debatable standard, which is.
May I ask a question, Ms. Wells?
Yes, you can.
Ms.
Councilman
Wells.
Miranda.
Have this ever been done before, where you hear the rezoning before you hear the land change, zoning of the land?
Kate Wells, Legal Department, for the record. Not since I've been with the city. If it has been done, it was before I returned to the city in 2019.
That's the reason I asked, because I don't remember either. Whatever word you want to use. So we're back to square one.
Back to square one?
However, Mr. Bentley.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything further you want to state before we close this hearing?
Well, I had a suggestion, and I don't think Ms. Wells would endorse it, but if we continued the matter, her discussion on the zoning, didn't take action on the zoning, to enlighten you as to what's proposed on the property, and then take action on the plan amendment. You know, because the way things are, you know, the way this is going is, I don't see how you could ever approve a plan amendment. You know, it's extremely difficult in a vacuum like this. So, but it is the process, and, you know, we're desperately trying to explain the project to you, and hopefully we get that opportunity, but.
Councilwoman Hurtak. Okay. Councilman Carlson, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, you know, this is a legislative matter, and comprehensive plan is based on lots and lots of public input from neighborhoods and community members and everything, and then there's consensus built around it. And so when there's a comprehensive plan change, then in theory it should include the same kind of public outreach and scrutiny. And in this case, the community, the neighborhood says that they still have thoughts to give or feedback to give, and they would like to have a conversation. I would rather not vote against this. At the same time that the comprehensive plan changes, it seems to me need to have public input. It would be better to delay it for a couple weeks to encourage that, and if at that time the neighborhood refused to meet, then that's the neighborhood's fault. But in the meantime, there might be some constructive discussion that would help this move forward faster than being voted down.
Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman, procedurally, I see Ms. Sanchez keep standing up. I know the rabbi talked about the attempt to speak with Ms. Sanchez. Is it possible, since it's a legislative matter, we can hear from Ms. Sanchez and maybe we can have a turnaround to, there could be a discussion later on to look at this situation with the community?
Well, it is a legislative matter, it is, and if you have a specific question for Ms. Sanchez. I'm sorry.
Yes. Ma'am, Mr. Bentley.
I talked to the client, and Mr. Carlson made a good suggestion that we delay this 2 weeks, give us the opportunity to have further discussions with the community and their representatives, and hopefully they'll result in something positive. If not, we'll be back here in 2 weeks and say at least we gave it a try. So.
Then are you asking for a continuance?
Till April 25th, if that's possible.
If we can, I just want to confer with staff as to that date.
27th? Okay, April 27th.
Do we take public comment?
Yes,
or
we will.
That's an alcohol night.
It is an alcohol night. That's true, it is an alcohol night.
Can we,
I'd like to,
April,
can we do it in May?
well,
You can do it here. You get one.
yeah, it's fine.
how many items do we have?
Can we hear this on an alcohol night?
Unless staff has a concern about that. They're looking at it, council.
Hey, Ryan,
What date? Ryan Manassi, what date do we have available?
What date is open?
Well, we're checking to see if, of the availability for April 27th. It is an alcohol night, according to your calendar. It's an alcoholic beverage night. There's only one listed here, but that doesn't mean they haven't been scheduled because it is,
March 27th or April 27th?
excuse me, April 27th. Did I say March? I'm sorry.
We're talking about a couple weeks, I thought.
Yeah, is there
Well,
one?
you said
Yeah.
April.
Oh, I said
You said
April.
No,
Oh, we're looking at March.
Oh, I don't know that we have room in March.
Wait a second, let me see. We're looking at March 23rd, the evening of March 23rd.
That's packed. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at least.
It looks like you have comprehensive plan amendments and one land rezoning already scheduled for that night. It looks like. One, two, three, four.
March 9th?
23rd is what we're looking at.
That's us, damn, not
What's
behind.
staff?
March 23rd? Nope. 23rd.
There are presently 9 items on the agenda according to what I see on the calendar. I don't know what.
So the next one after that is April 13th, right? But that's too far out.
Yeah.
Usually we have a cancellation anyway. Can we just say that we would cap it at 11 then for that night, or, cap it at whatever is on this list for that night, March 23rd?
Amy
Ms.
Barnes,
Barnes.
Development Coordination, so there is availability on the March 23rd.
March 23rd?
Correct.
Can this be the first item heard at 5:01?
Correct.
And then we need to put number 8 on there too, right?
You would have to continue both items.
Well, when you'd have to get to number 8, you'd put it on the same night, if that's council's pleasure.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to continue item number 1 to March 23rd, first item.
Second.
At 5:01?
Yes.
Well, actually, when you say 5:01, the time is, they'll all be set for 5:01, but I don't know where this would appear on the
First agenda item.
First agenda
The
item.
first agenda item. Okay.
Yeah, did I have it? Mr. Shelby?
No, just council, just a reminder that you've heard everybody's presentations. You've heard the opportunity for the public to speak. The matter would be, it wouldn't be another full presentation unless there are substantial changes or something happens that people would be able to address the potential changes, but to have another whole full presentation from either side.
We wouldn't intend to unless you wanted a summary of where things stood, you know.
Well, that would be appropriate because that's the purpose of the continuance. So the discussion would be the purpose of the continuance.
What are we doing item 8? You gotta do both of them.
We'll just move that second, right? I'll do another motion. And I forgot to read it. It's item number 1, file number TACPA 22-26.
Yes, and that's what we do, is after the motion is made and seconded. Go ahead.
So I'd like to move to continue item number 1, file number TACPA 22-26 to March 23rd to be the first item on the 5:01 PM agenda.
Is there anyone in the audience, anyone in chambers, that wishes to speak to this continuance only?
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Pointer. I'd just like to say that I'd support this continuance because while the rabbi has stood up here and said that he wants to do this for the community, and I would agree with that, but you can't do things for the community without speaking with the community and having a neighborhood meeting and inviting the people who live within 250 feet would be the ideal movement forward. We look forward to hearing about that. Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers?
Just very quickly, I'm glad for the continuance. I
I'm
look
sorry.
forward to speaking.
Ms. Sanchez, we know who you are. Please state your name for the record.
Okay, Sandra Sanchez, 2705 Fig Street, Tampa Armory Gardens. I agree with the continuance and I hope that between now and that time, that the rabbi will reach out to talk to me. We never received a letter. We never received an email. We did receive the good neighbor notice, but never an attempt to talk to us. So I would assume that the continuance will go forward on the condition that he has met with the community or at least representatives from the community. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman and members of council, if I can follow up with that statement before Mr. Bentley has a last word if he does, but I just want to state that your code does not require a neighborhood meeting presently. And this is as a result of this discussion. And again, that has come up in the past, and I don't know what the process is now with regard to staff, where this stands, but if council wishes to have neighborhood compatibility meetings or whatever council or the staff wishes to call it, the city, and make that as part of the process, that would have to be amended into your code.
I thought we discussed about having community meetings. I thought we discussed doing it.
Well, yes, there was a discussion, but quite frankly, as I sit here now, I cannot tell you where that stands.
I thought we made a motion or approved that go into.
Well, then,
Yeah,
we can
okay,
tell yes.
That's right.
Please.
But I just want to.
Anyone else in chambers wishing to talk about, please come forward. Mr. Bentley?
Debbie Zimmerman, 192 Corsica Street. And I would like to request, given the fact that this is a legislative matter, there may be residents that want to speak with our elected officials on this.
She waits her time.
From what I heard, I'm asking a question. From what I heard, we're allowed to. Would someone please give us the information that we need to know in the event we want to contact somebody, and what the process is and what we're allowed to do, just so we fully understand?
My suggestion is that you reach out to staff. Do you have,
Is-
and by the way, just so, for the record, just so we're clear, with regard to your comments, you did waive your time, but what you're doing now is you're taking the opportunity to ask a question.
Right, because this is on the continuance, so,
Well,
but
the
I just think it would be helpful so that none of us none of us intend to violate anything, but we could do it accidentally, and I just want to make sure it's very clear who we're allowed to talk to and what we're allowed to talk about, so that there's no confusion with anyone who wants to contact one of our council members. That's all I'm asking for.
Oh, what you're asking is,
Yes.
you're asking as to whether on a legislative matter can you contact your council members?
And if so, what parameters we have with such contact? We understand we would not be talking about agenda item 8, but only this one. So if someone could just say that for the record so we know what our parameters are, that would be helpful.
Frankly, with a pending rezoning matter, that's problematic because it is very difficult to be able to avoid steering into what ultimately, and we've seen that tonight, that in terms of what a legislative matter with the land use plan is, that what it could ultimately do is it could actually veer into matters of rezoning, which would then be inappropriate and then would then turn into an ex parte communication, which then could put the burden on the city council member to have to be able to address that for the purposes of the record.
Right. Thank you,
So-
and I understand that, but also, as citizens, we have a right to comment on or on legislative matters, and to the other side, aren't we losing our right to discuss legislative matters that we're allowed pursuant to the ordinances and the rules governing comp plan changes? So I don't understand. I think I heard tonight that we could speak to anybody on quasi-legislative matters, and that's what we would want to talk to, not the quasi-judicial issue. We just need to know how we can talk about it, and it's not our fault that they're both going at the same time, which gets back to several of the council members' comments. If we're not allowed to talk on a quasi-legislative matter, I believe some of our rights are being denied to us, and I'd like to have the right to talk on a quasi-legislative issue. but-
On solely legislative matters is what you're saying.
Oh, sorry.
Quasi-judicial as opposed to.
Oh, just the legislative, okay, sorry. Excuse me, this is why we went clarity. So on a legislative matter, I would like to be able to talk to council members, and I want to make sure that I am able to exercise that right, but I would like to know what the parameters are for me to do that, and I recognize there's another issue, so I would follow any parameters that I need to follow to be able to exercise my right.
You're asking a question that I'm not prepared to answer to you right now at this public meeting during this hearing.
Oh, okay, I respect
So what
that.
I will do is I will be able to address that with you, and we can discuss this. What you're asking something now is something that would not be for me appropriate to be able to give you instruction
Okay.
now as to how to go forward. My advice to council is the same as it is normally, that council, when you have something that is potentially going to be the subject of a rezoning, you have been advised in the past to be able to avoid putting yourself in a position of creating potentially prejudicial statements and ex parte communications, but we will address this question and be able to provide guidance.
And I have one follow-up on that, because.
I'm going to ask you if you can talk offline about that, because frankly, right now,
Well,
that's not.
this applies to the group here. Can we have that in writing is all I'm asking for, just so that the public knows, we need to have the process that we can participate in. We don't know the process, and that affects all of us in this room, not just myself. So if it could be in writing, that would be helpful for all of us.
It comes down to the fact of what the criteria and what the subject matter is that you're discussing.
Just this agenda item, just only this agenda item, number 1. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
So
but-
everyone's heard my concerns and my comments. We want to talk, we don't know what we're allowed to do. There's multiple ones, it's not just me, and if we had some kind of written direction, it would be most helpful. If that's not possible, then we understand.
Can we please can you have this discussion later while we finish this case up?
Right, and
Please
if,
thank
what
you.
I'm asking is that you, as a body, consider putting in some kind of direction as to how that will also be shared, because it's not, it's a public issue, it's not a me and Mr. Shelby issue, which I
And
greatly
I
respect
understand.
him, yeah.
He is our legal advisor.
Right,
So,
right.
okay,
Okay, thank you so much,
If
and
we can
thank you,
move on
Mr.
with this
Shelby.
case, thank you very much.
Counsel, excuse me for saying this, but it's inappropriate for me in my position to be able to, particularly with regard to this particular case, to set forth parameters of what people can or cannot speak, what the criteria is, what cannot be said or what can be said. Frankly, it's between the petitioner and it's between the community, and what they want to speak of, they can speak, but ultimately, your decision is based on certain criteria and relevant to the particular matter that you have before in front of you. I am not going to be able to, when a hearing comes up, to be able to tell people when they meet privately with the applicant what is appropriate and how to speak. I cannot do that, I'm sorry.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I just want to say that we all, it's my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding that it's legal for all of you to send emails, and we read all the emails. You can put all, Ms. Zimmerman sends very long, detailed emails. We read all the emails. The emails go into the file, so they're public record, but it's one-way communication, but you can say everything you want in an email, and that way we'll make sure we're all protected legally, just in case. But unless you get another opinion, I would say send us detailed emails.
Councilman Hurtak.
And this just reiterates my point of not hearing these on the same night, because that is a legislative issue, and in legislative issues should be able to be, we should be able to have conversations about them. Quasi-judicial is different, and when you mix the two, that's where, yes, I can see how the public feels like their voices aren't being able to be heard. Whatever it takes to divide these going forward, I'm willing to do, because it saves us from nights like this. This is just too complicated. It's very difficult for the general public to understand, for council to understand. There's just frustration on all levels for this. And so, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to continue from Councilman Carlson, who seconded from Councilman Maniscalco. We have heard from people in chambers about the continuance. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goulds?
Yes.
Vieira? Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote.
I'd like, Mr. Chair.
Well, now, if we're going to hear from the public about anything pertaining to agenda number 8, file number REZ 2308, I'm going to ask everyone who is going to give any kind of testimony in tonight's hearings to please stand.
I think we're going to continue it, right?
Well, they have to speak to the continuance.
They don't, no, well, I don't believe so.
But if they're going to speak to the continuance.
You
they have
can't,
to
you
be
cannot,
sworn in?
I don't believe you can hear item number 8, irrespective of what people's position are, because you've continued number 1.
Can I make a motion to continue?
You can make a motion to continue it.
I'd like to make a motion to continue number 8, file number REZ 23-08 to March 23rd as the second agenda item on 501 agenda.
If we can again, if you can, Mr. Chairman, just, I heard the people talking, if you could ask for quiet, please.
We have a motion to continue agenda item number 8, file number REZ 23-08 by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Miranda.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may I? If you could just state the date and time again, and the fact it's here in the chambers, because that's the only notice that people will get.
March 23rd as the second item on the 501 agenda here in council chambers.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the continuance of agenda number?
No, sir.
No, I said can.
No, just if anybody's opposed.
No.
All in favor, say aye. Is there any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Goods.
we've been on this subject for over an hour, over 2 hours.
Yep.
So, I mean, it goes back to the point that I always say that when something arises, you have to fix it. When something arises, you have to fix the process. And that, I keep saying the city is getting bigger now. No longer look at little city, you have a lot of moving parts now. And people now question what's going on in their city now. So I'm just saying, with this council moving forward, whoever may be, you may have to look at, again, separating these two and also making sure that there's some type of understanding the community, they can know what a legislative matter is versus a quasi-judicial matter. Because everyday people, they just don't know what that means. They're just here to vent their concerns or frustration for or against. So I think moving forward, with Mr. Carlson be here and a few others maybe we need to look at the process and change the process so the community can be more engaged, because that's what it seems the going rate now is everybody wants to know to be able to be a part of the process. So those are just my few words on this for 2 hours.
Agenda item number 3, file number TACPA 22-30.
Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. This is TACPA 2230, and it's a text amendment for the land use policy 5.1.6 relating to the floor area ratio blending in urban villages within the central planning district. And this is a transmittal hearing, and the amendment will come back before you in May. This was privately initiated, and the policy was previously amended by TACPA 2101, which expanded blending from within an urban village to a half-mile outside of an urban village. With the provision, the project is approved through a plan development or a plan development A and at least 1 acre in size, and the provision cannot be applied to lands outside of the Central Tampa Planning District. The proposed language would expand the proportionate weight of density and intensity to sites that are less than 1 acre, with the provision that the site must have frontage along an arterial roadway. The Planning Commission found it consistent with multiple aspects of the comprehensive plan relating to the promotion of the compact city form strategy to provide greater density and intensity near the urban villages, and greater flexibility in the development process will streamline the development of the city form encouraged by the comprehensive plan. And the Planning Commission recommends that the proposed text amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Can you go back, because on this it says alternative zoning that it's at least 1 acre in size, and I think you said less than 1 acre. I'm confused.
So with the proposed amendment of it, I'll put that slide back up. With the proposed language that it could possibly apply to lands that are less than 1 acre in size, but they have to have frontage on an arterial roadway. Currently, the policy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says on our public hearing text amendment language.
Right, so that's how the language is proposed. So this policy right here, that is how it is currently adopted, and it's right here, it has to be at least 1 acre in size. With what is adopted, what is proposed, it would have to maintain frontage on
okay,
an
I see the
arterial
or
roadway.
now,
And-
thank you.
yes.
The or was the part that got me, appreciate that.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tyler Hudson. My address is 400 North Ashley Drive. The applicant for this text amendment is Tim Johnson, who's here sitting right behind me. If I could bring up the PowerPoint for item 3. So, Council, as Emily alluded to, this is a comprehensive plan text memo. We just had a pretty robust discussion about a map amendment where you're changing the colors on the plan. This is a text amendment, and while this text amendment was motivated by a specific development, this has a little bit of a different approval cycle than what you're accustomed to. As Emily said, this is a transmittal hearing. So back in the day, the state had a much heavier hand in local land use regulation. That's really been abandoned, but this is still a vestige of that. So tonight, if you approve this item, what you're really doing is transmitting it to Tallahassee, to the Department of Economic Opportunity. I don't get the sense that they really look at this too closely, and if you don't hear from them after 30 days, it's sort of deemed that they have no comment, and it comes back here for not a second reading, it's called the adoption hearing, and that's it. So you still have 2 hearings, but the first is called a transmittal hearing, that's today. The folks in Tallahassee will look at it in April, and it'll come back here in May. If you see below in the dashed line, I do want to say, just for context, that this is not an idea that just came up. This was not like a shower thought. This is a text amendment that's been filed because of a very specific project that has a PD rezoning, and it has a map amendment. And you might recall at the very beginning of this hearing, we asked for a continuance for that item until April. That is so all of this will hopefully, if the stars align, line up in May for an approval of all 3 items. If you look at your screen, on screen, you see something that's pretty familiar to you, which is a group of rectangles in different colors of purple and brown, which is the Planning Commission's preferred color palette. Future land use boundaries sometimes change at roadways and right-of-way, and they sometimes change mid-block along alleys. If you drive up Dale Mabry, Kennedy, Howard, it's usually not the whole block that's the same color. It usually actually stops at the old platted alley. And sometimes those plats have been long since abandoned, but what you'll have is a situation where the rear of a block might have lower density. In this case, it's that sort of brown color, and the purple shade to the south, that's on Kennedy Boulevard, that'll have a higher density. If this were in the county, anywhere in Hillsborough County, you can add up the different colors of development rights, move them around the site however you want to. But in Tampa, it's pretty limited, the circumstances in which case you can do that. And what we're trying to do is add a little bit more flexibility, which, as I think I'll hopefully get to at the end of this, we think makes sense as good policy, but this did come up due to a specific site. As I alluded to, this is a specific site. This is an example, but this is the example of the project that this text amendment was filed as a result of. It's at the northeast corner of Kennedy Boulevard in Tampania. So it's one parcel on Kennedy Boulevard, and the other side of the alley, you have 2 parcels that are on North A, and this is at the very southeast corner of the Armory Gardens neighborhood. It's right adjacent to what's referred to as North Hyde Park. As Emily mentioned, and Councilman Hurtak noted about the ore, there's currently 2 ways that you can do this blending. If you're in one of those urban villages, which aren't, you don't hear much about the urban villages, but they're generally large blocks of discernible neighborhoods near the urban core, Tampa Heights, Ybor City, things like that. So you can do this blending in urban villages where you add up the different types of density and then you move them around the site through a PD zoning. You can only use this through a PD zoning that, of course, comes before the City Council. The other way you can do it is with 4 standards. It's got to be in a PD, meaning it has to come to you all. This does not create any by right entitlement. It has to be in the central Tampa planning district. It has to be within half a mile of an urban village, and the project has to be greater than 1 acre. As you will continue to see, I think, as council, it is getting a little bit more challenging to find development sites that have the perfect entitlements, where everyone's welcoming whatever the new use is, it's the right shape, there's no trees. As Tampa grows, it's getting harder. I'm just getting harder. I should say that the land available for new construction, especially if it's just a surface parking lot, is probably gonna have something a little bit wrong with it. It's gonna be a weird shape, it's gonna have some weird title issue, and it might not be an acre. An acre is 43,560 square feet. That's a pretty good piece of land for being near the city. So as an example, this hypothetical project at 2517 Kennedy Boulevard, you would have to develop the density generated from the brown parts on the brown parts, and you would have to use the density from the pink part on the pink part. There would be no way to shift the entire building on to Kennedy Boulevard because this site's not 1 acre. We have met, and Tim will talk more about this. We've had a community meeting. Tim's the owner of a wine store in North Hyde Park called Bottlesmith. We had a community meeting, and what was fairly clear is that the neighbors did not want these North A parcels developed. You could do, I think, 4 townhomes probably there now, or 5. They wanted the density shifted away. They wanted it on Kennedy Boulevard, which makes sense, as Kennedy Boulevard is an arterial road, it's a mixed-use corridor, it's the type of high-traffic street where it makes sense to have maybe a little bit of a taller building than on North A. That is why we have filed this text amendment. We have filed this text amendment so that this project, and it's going to benefit other projects. I will say that there have been a few different projects where we have almost filed something like this, and this will continue to get filed because it is a need for greater flexibility, but we think there's a lot of accountability with it. So here is exactly what we are proposing. There's number 1 through 3, that is exactly what the code says today. There is no change at all to that. But for that 4th criteria, instead of requiring a project to be 1 acre, which is a little larger than I think you're going to find, especially for really kind of urban infill sites.
Mr. Hudson?
Sure.
Can we have quiet in chambers, please? Thank you.
So again, 1 through 3 that you're seeing on screen, that's the code, the standard as is. Number 4, it's got to be greater than an acre. What we're proposing is that if the site's not an acre, but it's on an arterial road, you're able to take advantage of this flexibility. And by take advantage of this flexibility, I mean file a PD rezoning that comes to you. No one can go, if this gets approved, no one can go to the permit office and get anything they can't today. It's going to have to come through you for new rezonings. But we think allowing this flexibility on arterial roads makes sense because those are the arterial road fronting parcels are the ones where you are more likely to have a very small site on which it's going to make sense to do a bit more density. But with this provision, you're able to push it onto that arterial road. What is an arterial road? There are not many of them. I do not know, perhaps Mr. Benson could answer as far as if there's a quantitative threshold in terms of trips that makes it an arterial road, but these are the largest roads, the most heavily trafficked roads in the city of Tampa. These are roads that, for the most part, I don't think this council would be shocked by if someone brought a 4, 5, 6-story building. And there are roads where there is maybe perhaps a difference between the density that you want to have on that road and in the rear, in the neighborhood. There's a difference between North A and Kennedy Boulevard, and I think the Armory Gardens neighborhood would agree with that. What we're seeking through this text amendment is the ability to shift, as an example, the density that could be used, the buildings that could go on a place like North A, just onto Kennedy Boulevard. And it's not just us that desires that. In the case of this specific application, we know that it's the desire of the neighborhood. It's worth noting, I've talked to Larry Premack about this because I've had some surprises about text amendments that I didn't think would have the scrutiny. Davis Island, Harbor Island, there are no arterial roads on those on those islands. You can actually already do this on Davis Island because it is a urban village. But again, I want to go back to remind council about what type of roads we're talking about. And the greatest safeguard of all for this is only new PDs are allowed to utilize this. I know there might be a little bit of fatigue about PDs, and I wouldn't say it's just on one side of this podium. They have a lot of flexibility, PDs, but they do not have flexibility for this. For a site, for these purple and brown triangles, a site on Kennedy Boulevard, you have no choice but to do some building in the neighborhood and a little bit less than is probably appropriate on Kennedy. So we believe this text amendment is extremely narrow. We believe it's reasonable. It's not just us that believes that. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this. The Planning Commission staff recommended approval. And I believe City Planning is here. I don't want to speak for them, but I understand that I don't believe have any objections to this. So with that, I'm happy to Actually, I'd like to turn it briefly over to Tim, who can talk a little bit more personally about what he heard from the neighbors about where they do and don't want a building.
Good evening. Tim Johnson for the record. So this is, I think, important for the city as we continue to grow. The larger sites become less abundant, and without the flexibility that this would provide, it really bifurcates the development into larger sites that can capture all the density and smaller sites that can't. And the smaller sites, there are a number of smaller sites on arterial roadways that would benefit from keeping the density on those roadways that are more commercial in nature and taking it out of the neighborhoods that are behind or surrounded by the arterial roadways. I met with the Armory Gardens neighborhood and North Hyde Park Alliance, met for a few hours a couple weeks ago, talked through this. We're not here tonight to present any specific PD rezoning. It's specifically to focus on the text amendment here and to provide flexibility, continue to maximize potential opportunities of these arterial roadways within the city.
I neglected to say this at the outset, but we do have some letters of support, which I believe were emailed. I'll give to Mr. Shelby just to enter into the record. Just the names of those are Nate Siegel, Brant Peterson, Chad Rupp, Chris Butler, and Ken Cowart, who are either immediate residents, property owners, or business owners in the area. So with that, thanks for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Hurtak? Councilman Miranda?
Thank you, Chairman. And I know you've done a great presentation. Can you maybe tell us if you've done any studies on how many properties might be affected?
That could do this?
It would be
on the arterial roads, of course.
Sure. That's a tough question to answer because, again, this only applies to when someone would draw a square that's less than an acre and they hit two colors. If you draw a square and it's less than an acre, but it's all the same color on the map, it's all some pinkish reddish color, it wouldn't matter. I think that the way you'll see this, the only way, the Councilman, that you would see this utilized, if someone comes to you and says, here's my specific plan for where I want to use it here. I mean, I think a lot of the arterial roads like Dale Mabry and Kennedy, there's a lot of really large acre plus sites. So I candidly don't think this is going to be something that's burning up Sire with applications for it, but I do think it's a somewhat inevitable change. I think that's why the staff views it favorably, and we certainly know we need it for this one project that we believe the neighborhood's getting behind.
Thank you very much. Councilman Hurtak?
I appreciate this. I think I understand it, but so from my understanding, if you own these parcels, you're shifting the density toward the major road.
Mm-hmm.
But what goes back? So what I'm thinking of, and I believe it's been 30 days, so Kate can tell me if I'm wrong, but we had a plan on Kennedy that we approved a while ago that had the majority of the density on Kennedy, and then it stair-stepped down. Is that basically what this would allow?
It would. It would really allow any configuration. In candor, I mean, it would allow someone to try to shift it all to the back. I think the safeguard against that would be the PD rezoning. I don't think that would go well unless there was like a grand tree or some really unusual situation. I think the way to think about this, and I realize that these text amendments can be challenging because they seem a little conceptual, is in certain areas the square footage is fluid. You can move it around. You can move it around that big tree. You can push it more towards the west or the east. For sites that aren't an acre, but they're on an arterial, it's like ice, it's frozen. And so you sort of have no choice but to build, okay, the 4 townhomes on North A and the 2-story building on Kennedy, when perhaps it makes sense to, I don't want to get into rezoning, so I don't want to cross-contaminate things, but theoretically, someone could just put the entire building on the Kennedy parcel and not put any buildings on a North A parcel at all. But this would allow the flexibility through the PD for someone to present to this council whatever configuration of density is desired. The issue is that right now it's trapped. If you have a site that's less than an acre, those development rights are kind of trapped in the interior of the neighborhood. And all we're asking is that property owners have the ability to ask council for approval of a site that shifts it shifts it in a different direction. Oh, sorry.
I think I know what situation you're talking about, and the way this is addressed right now is they just ask for a plan amendment for the back part, and they increase the entitlement across the board. So this amendment is proposing to not effectuate that. It's saying, instead of making the whole site homogeneous and getting a plan amendment for whatever you maybe don't quite have, it's saying you can just take what's already there and shift it to the front without having to make it all consistent.
Yes, and I guess, I think the question for the public is then what happens to the back? Like, is that just park space, or it can be lower I mean, ideally, the way people would use this is pushing the density, like the higher density, and keeping the lower density close to the neighborhoods. That's why I was using that one as an example, because that was a great example of having both, that was a combining of multiple parcels, but basically the higher building toward the front and then stair stepping down toward the back. In theory, this is what would be encouraged.
Sure, and just to use the example of the pink and brown rectangles that were on screen, if the piece on North A, the brown, let's say that could generate 10,000 square feet, and the pink on Kennedy Boulevard could generate 20,000 square feet, a developer right now can do 10,000 up there and 20,000 on Kennedy. What this would allow a developer to do is put 30,000 square feet on Kennedy and nothing. There would be no square footage at all on, because again, comp plan gives you, my kids are into Play-Doh right now, the Play-Doh gives you the stuff, the development rights to utilize, and zoning implements it. The height, the mass, the setbacks, and all that. So if someone were to use this provision, they would say, we have 30,000 square feet total, we want to put them all at the front. That would mean you can't do anything on the back because you've used all your development rights. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, Mr. Hudson talked, this is a question for staff. Mr. Hudson talked about the definition of arterials. Is there a legal definition, and what roads specifically are covered under it?
Jonathan Scott, Transportation Planning. The arterial roads are there. These are higher volume roadways.
But is there a specific finite definition of it, or is it when he presented it was kind of vague, like that some roads could be included and some not? Is there a specific definition so that someone will know specifically what roads are included? For example, Davis Island Boulevard, somebody might consider that an arterial, but if it's a certain amount of traffic or whatever, then maybe it wouldn't.
There are definitions, but the classifications are set by the departments. So it's they're not like defined by a certain parameter or so forth.
It's set by FDOT or something?
They're set by our mobility department, by us. You know, we designate the roads.
And so you have a map that says these are the defined
That's
arterials.
correct.
And then what's the process you go through to designate a new, let's say that Davis Island Boulevard is not designated and somebody wants to build something there, so they come to you and say, we want that designated as an arterial. Is that an easy change?
A process for that. It would have to be initiated by our department. There wouldn't be a process where someone can go to and try to have it reclassified. It wouldn't work that way.
And does that come before council or not?
It does not.
But there's this, what's the definition of arterial? Is it the amount of traffic, or what's the criteria?
Yeah, these are like higher volume roadways, and might be at certain vehicles.
But is there a certain number of vehicles per hour that classifies a arterial?
There are some general guidelines and so forth. I don't have those offhand, but they are higher volumes. You'd be like a local, collector, arterial. Okay. They have different levels of.
Yeah, this is way too vague for me. This is why I don't like the comprehensive plan. Anyway, I don't like things that are not specific, because it leaves it too open for interpretation. What's an arterial? Somebody one day can come in and just say, anyway, it's very frustrating. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Wasn't there a map of the arterial roads?
Yes, there is a map.
I mean, didn't he have one?
Yeah, he had showed it in his presentation, and it has all the designations and which roads are, and that's what we all go by for
Ms.
determine
Hudson,
what
can
is
you put
what.
that map back up?
And Mr. Scott, when was the last time we added an arterial road designation?
We go through those, there's a process, every couple of years it's looked at and updated. I think the most recent update is whatever the date on the map is, I'd have to look.
It's
Not recent.
Yeah, if TCTV could bring up the map, I can share that. And if I could just briefly, Councilman Carlson's point, I know the comp plan does seem sort of vague and conceptual, and that's sort of by its nature, but there will never be an instance where this flexibility is utilized in a general way. Someone's gonna bring you a plan and say, this is on 123 Dale Mabry, and we're adding up our rights, and here's how we're gonna put them. Someone tries to put all the development rights back into the neighborhood, they can ask for that, but that's not gonna get approved. It's conceptual by nature. We can't make this any more specific than it is. We think this is a very 4-point plan. It's very specific. And again, I think it's important to note, that this will only be implemented by a specific PD rezoning. So that's the, and this is really, first I can say, as someone who comes before this council fairly often, it is, you cannot reclassify these roads. We've tried. Can you see it?
Can you go back one more? That had the list?
Oh, sorry, there we go. And this is a little bit tough to read, but it's the darker black lines.
Stephen Benson, City Planning, functional classification is established by code in chapter 25. So to change it, it would require a code amendment.
To change it to an arterial?
To change that map would require an amendment to chapter 25, so it would come before you.
So,
this map is,
Councilman Carlson.
so yeah, this is my point. Like usually in science or engineering, I think somebody would say arterial is 5,000 trips per hour or something. There's a specific cutoff. And so there would have to be a study to figure out, is it above 5,000 or not, whatever the criteria is. But regardless of that, you're saying that it can't be up, that we would work, the definition would be defined, the definition for this change would be defined by this map. And the map has to come before council and we have to hear the testimony.
Yes.
But there's no standard for,
There is, but it's not a simple standard. There's an engineering formula that goes into determining what roads end up qualifying or not qualifying. So, but it would require an amendment to actually add an arterial to the map or to take an arterial off the map.
and it's objective. Do you believe that it's objective enough that somebody cannot easily arbitrarily decide what's an arterial and what's not?
I am not a professional engineer, but yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Side note here, the irony is all these roads are either county or state roads. Won't it be great if the county would give us the money to repave those? Just a side note, thank you.
yes, it would.
Anything else, Mr. Hudson?
No, council, thank you for your time.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak to this? Agenda item number 3, TCC 22-30.
Second.
We have a motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco.
Move to transmit the public hearing.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Now, make your motion.
What, to transmit the public hearing?
Right.
Oh, move to transmit the public hearing.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say, roll call vote.
Can I make a statement first?
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think that the public is sufficiently protected by the fact that the map, which is part of the criteria, has to come before council. And also, these are PDs, which also have to come before council. And so, I will not object to it based on those grounds. Thank you.
You are right. Roll call vote.
Okay. Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goulds, Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote.
Okay, I thank you. For the rest of our hearings that we're going to have to ask people that are going to give any type of testimony this evening, would you please rise to be sworn in? And I'm thinking that's going to be everybody in this room.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Mr. Hussein, you were sworn in, weren't you? Let's get Mr. Hussein sworn in right now.
Thank you, sir. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5, file number REZ 22-107.
Good evening, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. This item is REZ 22-107. The request is 1206 West Lemon Street. The request is to rezone the property from RS 50 to PD for residential single-family attached uses. I'll turn over the presentation to the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much. David Hay, Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. Our first rezoning for this evening is located within the Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the West Tampa Urban Village. The closest transit is located at Cypress and Willow. The closest public recreation facility is Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park. And the subject site is located within the coastal planning area and is in a level B evacuation zone. Here we move on to the aerial. This is the subject site right in the center. This is North Willow Avenue, running north-south, and then we have West Cass Street, about 1 block to the south. This is the Jade at North Hyde Park, the apartment community. This area, there's some office, light industrial uses, especially south of this side of Cass. Then north, predominantly north of Willow, northwest, is single-family detached, and then there's some more mix of single-family detached and townhomes and multifamily to the east of the subject site. Here we have the future land use map. The subject site, and this brown color is all the residential 35 future land use category. Immediately to the north on West Lemon Street, it goes down to the residential 20 by the light brown. To the south, you've got this pink color is the general mixed use 24. And then we do have some community mixed use 35, which is more of the pink color. And then it does go down to UMU 60 even further to the south. The subject site, again, is within that residential 35. That designation is intended for medium density uses, including single-family attached and multifamily. This portion of West Lemon Street between North Willow Avenue and North Delaware Avenue, excluding the subject site, has an existing density of 9.68 units per acre. That's based off of 11 sample sites along that block. The existing density represents 28% of the anticipated density under the residential 35 future land use designation. The planned development would allow for a development of 20 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density is 57% of the anticipated density under the residential 35. Though most of the parcels on this segment of West Lemon contain single-family detached residential uses, the comprehensive plan does encourage multifamily and single-family attached residential uses in that residential 35. Planning Commission staff finds that the proposed request will provide for a development that is compatible with that residential 35 designation and the surrounding area, especially as the area south of West Cass Street has been transitioning towards a mixed-use multifamily development pattern. The request supports many of the policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to the population growth. The comprehensive plan promotes a development pattern consistent with the compact city form, which encourages infill development. And based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff recommends to you this evening that the proposed plan amendment be found consistent with the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you, and I'm available if you have any questions. Oh, what did I say? Did I say plan amendment? Rezoning. Rezoning, I'm sorry. I'm used to the plan amendment.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. REZ 22-107, again, is to to rezone from RS50 to PD for residential single-family attached uses. The applicant is requesting 3 waivers. The applicant does propose to demolish the existing residential single-family structure on the site, shown on the overhead here, and construct a 2-story structure with 3 residential single-family attached units, with all units facing West Lemon Street. And let me provide an aerial map. Subject site. Shown here is the subject site directly east of Willow Avenue with Lemon Street to the north. The site, again, is located along North Willow Avenue and West Lemon Street. Parking, there's 7 parking spaces required and 7 are being proposed. Setbacks proposed are north 5 feet, south 13 feet, west 10 feet, although there is a waiver to reduce the block average of 19 feet and east 14 feet. The site is located in the West Tampa Overlay District. And overall, Development and Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the petition and finds the request inconsistent. Please see, regarding transportation, waiver requested, and that waiver is to reduce aisle width from 24 feet to 20 feet. Additionally, if approving this application, the wording on waiver 1 from increased needs to be changed to decreased if approving this application. And I'm going to show you a few more pictures. So this is the alley off of Lemon that serves as access for the site. This is looking south along Willow. I might need to zoom out. Property west of the site across Willow. Property north of the site across Lemon. Property south of the site along Willow. And east of the site, the corner of Newport and Lemon, shown here. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Steve McElhaney. I'm representing the Stevens and Clark family, and they're seated behind me. They wish to rezone this property to allow for a townhouse-style development. We went through this process, and originally the driveways were oriented. The driveways were oriented toward Lemon Street, and when we went through our reviews, and I think you might remember a month ago or so ago, and when we asked for a continuance, it was to reevaluate and reorient the site so that we could meet the urban design criteria. So we flipped the site over, and so now the access is on the rear via alley. We will have to improve that alley to City of Tampa standards. We'll also have to bring up the infrastructure, the water, sewer lines as well to effectively allow for this development to go forward. So the proposal is to allow for 3 townhouses. We would be allowed under the normal circumstances, under the land use classification, for 5 units. We're proposing 3 units. We found, the Planning Commission has found us to be consistent so that this development could move forward. They've also found that there is in the immediate proximity of this development, there are other mixed-use developments. There's other townhouses, apartments, office uses, and some heavy commercial. We are required to have 208 square feet of green space. We're providing 1,044 square feet of green space. which is in excess. Now, that also is what's pushing us to ask for the waivers on the setbacks. However, we believe that we've met the intent of the code and we've exceeded it in many respects. All of these will be two-story units, which they've also found to be compatible. The residential 35, I think as the staff had mentioned, would allow for 6 units, or I'm sorry, would allow for 5 units, and we're proposing 3. The locational issue regarding this, it meets all of the locational criteria as established by the city in the land use plan. The staff is objecting to the reduction in the drive aisle space, which we would reduce to 20 feet. But that is a function of us meeting the general setback and the alignment of the other homes along Lemon Street, so that when we align it, it pushes it back a little bit so that we're not protruding out in, beyond what the normal setback would be for the adjacent properties. So we've reduced the number of waivers that are being requested. We're requesting 3 waivers, and we believe that we have come to you with a much better product, one that's consistent with urban design, and they had no objections. So we're faced with the transportation objection, which they normally object to when you reduce the drive aisle spaces. This being a residential property and low intensity, and it's only for these units, generally that is acceptable, and it doesn't create off-site problems. I think that we've gone a long way. I can read all of the different criteria that we have met, and that is established in your report as well. Would like to ask that to be received and filed and made part of the record. Promote the efficient and sustainable use of land uses and infrastructure. And there's a long paragraph in here that establishes that. That's 27-136 under purposes. Allow the integration of different land uses and densities in one of the development areas. This is an area that's designated for redevelopment. It's anticipated, the R35, it clearly demonstrates that this is anticipated to be a higher density development area. Encourage the flexible land and development scale. Where by exceeding the green space, we have actually been able to do a better job of providing that, more so than other developments that we've brought before you in the past. Promote and encourage the development where appropriate in location, character, and style, and we've demonstrated that. The height is limited to the 35 feet. It's a 2-story complex that's being proposed, and the site plan demonstrates that. And I'm quoting now from the city staff report. The waivers requested are minimal, and the proposed use is appropriate in location in the surrounding area, with all of the residential uses there. This is on page 4 and page 5 of your staff report. Promote the more desirable living and environment and working conditions. This is very close to the University of Tampa, and as you know, not only do we have a housing demand throughout the city, we have another demand that's associated with the university. Promote architectural features and elements. Again, this is compatible with the surrounding development, and it doesn't exceed any of the normal heights of the properties in the area. Design of the proposed development is unique and therefore needed the waivers. Well, that's why I mentioned to you when we flipped the houses so that the access was to the rear, and we're trying to align the fronts with the adjacent properties along Lemon Street. That is what's forcing us to reduce the size of the drive aisle. And 20 feet on a drive aisle is not completely out of line. It is not what you would call extreme. The waiver of allowed would not substantially interfere with the rights of others in the property who's affected by this waiver. The waivers that we're requesting are, as the staff report says, are minimal and acceptable, and they are compatible with the code as it's aligned, as it's established. It is in harmony and serves the intent and the general purposes of this chapter. The Planning Commission has already indicated that it was consistent with their provisions in the comprehensive plan. Allowing the waiver would result in substantial justice being done. The Clark and the Stevens family would be able to move on. They've been anticipating this rezoning for quite some time, and they are very eager to move on with their lives. I could go through, if you like, and list all of the comprehensive plan provisions it is consistent with, including land use policies 5.1.4, 8.14.1, 9.2.1, 9.71, 9.7.3. And then under urban villages, 2.11, 9.6.1, 9.6.2, 9.6.3. The other policies including 1.117, 1.118. The Cypress Street land use policies, 2.12, 1.3.1, 1.3.3, 1.3.4. And again, they're all in your staff report, and I'd request that you receive and file that and make that part of the record. I'm certainly here to ask her any questions, and we'll be happy to include whatever questions you might have. I think I've covered the project.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
It sounds like you went through a lot to get to this, but I want to say, if you can put that back up, that this is a great design, and I want to thank you for making sure that it is front-facing, driveways in the back, some green space. I think this is a lovely design.
Thank you. We've worked really hard on this, trying to bring it to you in this configuration. And again, you know, in the future, we're probably going to have to look at some of the codes, because when we are compatible with the urban design overlays, then it brings us not into compliance with other codes. And those studies are going on now, but we appreciate your consideration and certainly would appreciate your support.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak to this agenda item, file number REZ 22-107? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Andre Clark, and this is Melvin
I'm Melvin
Stevens.
Stevens.
We are the
Owners.
kids from my mom that had the house. The people that you see right here are two different generations. My parents were the type of parents that special grandkids, the special kids that they looked out for. They couldn't do nothing by themselves with it, just them two living there. But my father left just for us to have. And he told me, he knew what the situation was going to come to, and he knew what we had to do. And he told me, before we break up as a family and before we lose the house, we need to sell the house. Now, we had memories in the house, and the house have done what it's supposed to do, do. Now it's time for us to move on, to prepare, because the money that we get will help us straighten ourselves out in life more better, with the situation with the economy. And it's time for someone else to enjoy that property. And we're willing to give it up, and we can continue with our life and things to make our life better. We're willing to give it up right now, and for somebody else to have that house, that special land right there, because it's a beautiful land. When you step outside, you see downtown buildings. Riverfront Park is 3 blocks up. UT is 3 blocks up. University Chapel 3 blocks up, and it's less like a mile downtown. So it's time for another family to enjoy that spot, and we're willing to give it up tonight.
Thank you.
And I agree with him. And y'all have a great day, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers wishing to speak to this agenda item? Do we have anyone online? Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Councilman Carlson.
No, just a second.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir. I'd like to move number 5, file number REZ 22-107, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1206 West Lemon Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS50 residential single family PD plan development residential single family attached, providing effective date, including the revision sheet. And the proposed development is consistent with land use policy 2.1.2 and housing policies 1.3.1, 1.3.3, and 1.3.4, which encourage new housing on vacant and underutilized land to ensure that an adequate supply of housing is available to meet the needs of Tampa's present and future populations. The proposed density is 57% of the anticipated density under the R35 designation. This will provide opportunities for housing at slightly higher densities than the surrounding area, which is supported by land use policies 5.1.4, 8.14.1, 9.2.1, 9.7.1, and 9.7.3. The site has been redesigned to provide vehicular access from the alley. Front door entrances are oriented to Lemon Street. The height of the structure has been reduced from 3 stories to 2, and the roof pitch has been redesigned. All these changes to the proposed development, as shown on the site plan, promote and encourage development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. The design of the proposed development is unique and therefore is in need of waivers. The requested waivers will not substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others whose property will be affected by the waivers.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Roll call vote.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods, Vieira, Maniscalco, Miranda,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on April 6, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Tell them thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank y'all.
Hey, God bless you all.
And guess
Thank
bless
you.
you.
Y'all want my money, hey.
Hey, this is my 71st birthday present.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
The date of the second reading is what? April 6th? Thank you.
Second reading and adoption will be held on April 6, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Agenda item number 6, file number REZ 22-330, file number REZ 22-34.
Hussein Hussein, Development Coordination. It's going to be hard to follow that up, but there's a proposed rezoning from PD to PD, place of religious assembly and daycare at the location 6460 Tampa Palms Boulevard. I'll now pass it along to our Planning Commission.
Thank you, Zane. David Hay, Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. We'll move up to the new Tampa Planning District for this next case. It is located in a part of the city. There is no transit up in this part of Tampa. Compton Park is the nearest public recreation facility. Under that suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category, it does fall under the mixed-use corridor policies. So there is specific policy direction within the plan regarding those mixed-use categories, and it is not located within an evacuation zone. Here we have the subject site. Of course, it's right in the center. This is Tampa Palms Boulevard that snakes its way through. It's all single-family detached with some natural preservation areas scattered throughout, and this is a TICO easement through to the north of the property. Here we have the future land use map. You could see all that pink is that suburban mixed-use 6, and then the green is the natural preservation future land use category. Again, it is under that SMU 6. This designation is typically located north of Fletcher Avenue and supports a mixture of housing types and limited commercial uses. The PD proposes a 0.09 FAR, which is approximately 19% of the floor area ratio that can be considered in the SMU 6. Planning Commission staff finds that the proposed uses and intensity are consistent with that suburban development pattern anticipated within this area of the city. And based on those considerations and the policies provided to you in the report, Planning Commission staff does find the proposed plan development consistent with the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. I'll go ahead and share the aerial view of the property. It comes up. There you go. As you see the property outlined here in red, to the north you have those TCO power lines. To the west, south, and east you have residential single-family detached homes. You also have stormwater ponds also to the southeast. If you keep going down Tampa Palms Boulevard, you'll reach Bruce B. Downs to the west. I will now share the site plan provided by the applicant. The proposed rezoning is for an expansion of a current rezoning, RZ 20-05. The current rezoning of RZ 20-05 is for a place of religious assembly and daycare. The current site has one existing building, 3,396 square feet, and this proposed rezoning is to expand that to of 12,500 square feet and add additional parking. So the proposed building area will be a total of 15,896 square feet. The total site area is 166,802 square feet. Vehicular access to the site, as you comes from the south on Tampa Palms Boulevard. The proposed parking is required to have 122 parking spaces, and the applicant is proposing 142 parking spaces. The proposed maximum height is 35 feet in height. I will now show the elevations provided by the applicant. As you see the elevation from the east, elevation from the west, elevation from the south, and the elevation from the north. As I went out to the site and took pictures, I will show you what I saw. I'm on Tampa Palms Boulevard right now at the vehicular access point. You can see the sign of the church, and also you can see the public notice sign. I am now on the property of the place of religious assembly, and you'll see the sign and building that's currently there. As I am directly south of the building, you see a sign and also the existing structure. As I look south, you'll have a lot of residential, single-family, detached suburbia neighborhoods to the south. As you look southwest, you'll see Tampa Palms Boulevard and residential single-family detached across the street. As you look southeast of the site, Tampa Palms Boulevard, you have stormwater ponds, and then you have more residential single-family detached behind that. And to the north of the site, you'll see the TCO power lines. The applicant is requesting 2 new waivers. The first is to request to remove 1 non-hazardous grand live oak. And the second request is to allow grass parking and grass drive aisles for the parking lots. The Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the petition and finds the overall request to be consistent with the Land Development Code. Should it be the pleasure of City Council to approve the application, the applicant must provide revisions to the revision sheet between first and second reading. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Hussein, we've seen this plot of land before, haven't we?
Correct. This was rezoning back in 2020, REZ 20-05.
Okay, can you put the site plan up again?
Yes.
Please. The request is just for the main structure?
Correct. It's for an expansion of the main structure and to also add additional parking.
Okay, so,
As you
right,
see the existing.
no other addition to that existing area there, which I believe is for, day school or something like that?
Correct. It will be for the place of religious assembly and also the daycare.
And where is the grass parking going to be located at?
The grass parking located a little bit to the north.
Okay, so it's not going to be anywhere near any residential areas then?
No, sir. To the north is the TCO power lines.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
Of course.
Good evening, Council. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. I'm here very proudly representing Lifesong Church in this expansion effort for the existing sanctuary and daycare. I think staff provided all the particulars. I don't need to parrot any of that. Again, it's a simple expansion of the existing facilities. It's a significant expansion in terms of what's there and what we're asking for. But in terms of what's allowed and what we're asking for, we are at about 19% of the allowable density. It's a beautiful site, beautiful lot. It's heavily treed. I think the grass parking is more than appropriate. I hope you could tell that a bit from the pictures. It really fits with the site nicely. As to the waivers, there's the parking, and we do unfortunately have to take 1 tree to make the plan work. I'm certain that we're doing the appropriate compensation for that. With that, I'd like to add we have no known opposition to this case. The sign's been up for a while. We have full staff support, and we respectfully ask for your support as well. I have the pastor of the church with me and my very excellent planner, Ryan McCaffrey, as well to answer any questions. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions, any comments? Is there anyone in the chambers that wishes to speak to this? We have a motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 6460 Tampa Palms Boulevard in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification PD plan development to PD plan development, place of religious assembly and daycare, providing an effective date. The petitioner has shown above and beyond all the facts and evidence that would support this and the consistency, and that is my motion.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Carlson? Yes. Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda? Yes. Hurtak?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on April 6, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7, file number REZ 23-03.
Zain Hussein, Development Coordination. This is a proposed rezoning at the location 2019 and 2023 Gordon Street. Proposed rezoning from RM16 and CG to PD, residential single-family attached. I'll now pass along to our Planning Commission.
Thank you, Zane. David Hay, Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. We move back down to the Central Tampa Planning District for this next case. The subject site is located within the Palmetto Beach neighborhood. DeSoto Park is the closest public recreation facility. There is no transit within the Palmetto Beach area. Closest is up toward Ybor. And the subject site is located within the coastal high hazard area. It is also within the coastal planning area, and it is within a level A evacuation zone. On to the aerial. We have 22nd Street right here, and then Gordon Street is on the north. 22nd Street, there's a mixture of some residential, some commercial. This was the historic kind of main street through Palmetto Beach until the port constructed an improved 20th Street. It's mostly residential from 22nd Street East, 22nd Street West. It's a mixture of light industrial, some remaining residential, you've got warehousing, and then you go into the heavy industrial uses on the west side of 20th Street. Here we have the future land use map. This is one of these sites that has two future land use categories. The properties adjacent to it along South 22nd Street in the pink, that's that community mixed use 35, so that allows up to CG uses consideration. The red directly across the street, that's community commercial 35, that allows consideration of up to commercial intensive uses. You could see it goes quickly down to a residential 10 pattern in this tan color east of 22nd Street. And then this kind of reddish color, that's the transitional use 24 category. That's a unique category within the city. That's really designated for areas that predated modern planning. So it has quite a mix of uses from residential, commercial, and industrial, light industrial uses. And then across 20th in that black color is that heavy industrial associated with the port. As described in Land Use Policy 6.1.13, the lands under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation are considered to be within the mixed use corridor, so those mixed use corridor policies do apply to the site. The proposed PD does allow for compatible low-medium scale development that will provide a sensitive transition from the light industrial uses south and east of the site to the single-family detached units west of the site. It is within that coastal high hazard area again, and the applicant is required to work with the City of Tampa and other regulatory agencies to ensure that any residential units mitigate for their impacts on shelter space. And in conclusion, the proposed PD will provide new housing on underutilized land and will provide compatible infill development for the Palmetto Beach neighborhood. So based on those considerations and the policies provided within your report, the Planning Commission staff finds the plan development consistent with the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Hay.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Sure. Zain Hussein, Development Coordination. I will share the aerial view of the property first. As you see the property here outlined in red to the east, you'll have South 22nd Street. To the west, you'll have South 20th Street. To the north, you'll have Thrace Street. And to the south, you'll have Davis Street. And farther to the west, you'll have the bay and then Channel Side that runs into downtown Tampa. I will now show the site plan provided by the applicant. The proposed rezoning is for 9 residential single-family attached units. As you see, there are 2 buildings, 3 continuous units, and then 6 continuous units here in the second building. The subject site is currently vacant at this time. The property is located on the northeast corner of 22nd Street and Gordon Street, as you see, 22nd and Gordon. The subject site contains a lot area of 16,741 square feet. The maximum building height is proposed for 3 floors at 35 feet in height. A total of 20 parking spaces are required, and the applicant is providing 20 parking spaces. Vehicular access to the site for the units is provided from an alley to the south, which comes off 22nd Street, as you see, 22nd Street, and then the alley to the south for access to the sites. So it's 2 cars per unit, and then also there are 2 spots right here, surface spots between the 2 buildings. I will now show the elevations provided by the applicant. As you see the elevations to the south, north, west, and east, and then additional elevations for the south and the north. As I went on site and took pictures, I will show you what I saw. I'm here at the intersection of Gordon and 22nd. You can see the 2 public notice signs, and behind that is the site, vacant at this time. As I looked over the fence, you'll have the vacant site. And a little bit farther to the west, another view of the vacant site. Looking across 22nd, you'll see a warehouse to the east. Looking to the west, you'll have residential homes up and down the west of Gordon. Also, if you keep going west, you'll have the bay and also Channelside. To the south, you'll have another warehouse. Another view to the south, we're on 22nd Street here. You have the warehouse to your right, and then you have residential homes down 22nd. At the intersection here of 22nd and Davis, you'll have residential single-family attached homes that are compatible with the proposed case. To the north, you'll have more residential single-family homes. And directly north, you'll have residential single-family home. The applicant is requesting one waiver, and that's to request to reduce the 8-foot required VUA buffer along 22nd Street to 3 feet. Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the petition and finds the overall request to be consistent with the Land Development Code. Should it be the pleasure of City Council to approve the application, the applicant must provide revisions to the revision sheet between first and second reading. Here for any questions.
Any comments or any questions? Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Ralph Schuler, 2401 North Howard Avenue, Tampa, Florida, and I have been sworn. So, we're all familiar with Palmetto Beach. Palmetto Beach, transitional area of many different uses, obviously predated zoning. We have just around this particular site, commercial, industrial, residential, multifamily residential, all scattered within close proximity. This project, which is of course a vacant lot, thinks that this will improve the area, bring in needed housing stock to the area, and provide a quality project that our client, Mr. Omar Garcia, is so for. He's done many other projects within the city, and that this project would be, again, really two buildings. And the nature of that is really because of the land use designation. This land use designation, which is the CMU 35, and then the current platted lot of transitional use 24. So we get two 3-story buildings, mainly because, of course, we are in an evacuation zone, and the Planning Commission would not support any upzoning, of course, and we're using the existing land use designation. The first floor is actually just all storage between cars and regular storage. FEMA would not allow us to do that. So all the living is done on the second and the third floor. So we think this is a smart and compatible way to bring in infill into a neighborhood that badly needs it, but it's also in an A zone. As Mr. Hussein suggested, there are other compatible developments nearby. Our development, I think, would fit very nicely into the overall fabric of the neighborhood. I want to quickly address our one waiver. Our one waiver is really on 22nd Street, which is typically or historically a commercial street. So we felt comfortable building a building closer to the street, which is more in keeping with the normal pattern of commercial development. And then also, if you see here, this is the sidewalk. It's very small. We would improve that sidewalk to a larger sidewalk, but currently our property line starts here. So we're really going to provide at least 8 or 9 feet of a buffer. It's just part of it's going to be on our site and part of it's going to be in the right of way, but it'll be improved and most people would never know the difference. So with that, we obviously would happy to do our amendments as required between first and second reading, and we look forward to the approval of this project. Happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak to agenda item number 7, file number REZ 2303?
Move to close.
A motion closed from Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Councilwoman Hurtak.
File number REZ 2303, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance rezoning the property in the general vicinity of 2019 and 2023 Gordon Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classifications RM16, residential multifamily, and CG, commercial general, to PD, planned development, residential, single-family attached, providing an effective date along with the revision sheet, and finding that the proposed development is consistent with land use policies 2.1.2 and housing policies 1.3.1 and 1.3.4, which encourages compatible infill development on vacant and underutilized land, and compliant with Land Development Code Section 27-136, that the proposed development, as shown on the site plan, promotes and encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood.
Second?
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Goods,
Yes.
Viera, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson. Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Viera being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on April 6, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Good night.
Good night.
You're also here for the other two? Okay, that's why I was pointing out in the audience to Mr. Hussein saying, we got
Yeah,
two
he's
more cases.
done.
Where's everybody at? Okay,
Jonathan.
so I just asked you, are you here for agenda item number 9 or number 10?
For 2309, I believe that is. Number 9. That I would like to confirm though, it's my understanding that the applicant is going to be online virtually.
Okay.
So before I begin, I wanted to confirm that with the clerk.
Okay. Thank you for asking for that confirmation. Is the applicant there?
Double checking out.
Okay.
Good evening, this is Celine Lucas, Deputy City Clerk. I do not have an applicant registered for item number 8. Is it number 9 or number 8?
9.
9.
Number 9, okay, give me one more.
The more convenient we make it.
Yes. Ah, okay. Are those the petitioners?
They're online?
I'm seeing some, but I'm wondering if they're the petitioners or the ones to speak against. Let's open the case anyways, and just to see. Agenda item number 9, file REZ 23-09.
Good evening, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. This is REZ 2309. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from RM16 to CN. I'm going to turn it over to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. David Hay, Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. We move, stay in the Central Tampa Planning District for this next case. This site is located within the North Hyde Park neighborhood. West Pines Park is the closest recreation facility. It's about 1/4 of a mile northwest of the subject site. North Armenia Avenue is a transit emphasis corridor. There is transit. Hart Routes 14 serves that corridor. And the subject site is within an evacuation zone C. On to the aerial. Again, this is Armenia. This is North B. This is the Glacier Jewish Community Center, JCC. And then you get, there's some mix of residential, there's some townhomes, offices, and commercial uses to the south. Move on to the future land use map. The subject site and all the properties around it in the brown are that residential 20 future land use category. It does intensify as you get over to Howard Avenue into that community mixed use 35 future land use category. The subject site, since it is located within that residential 20, the commercial, it needs to meet commercial locational criteria. Since the subject site is located on North Armenia Avenue, or an arterial roadway, Planning Commission staff has determined that the site does meet the locational criteria as outlined in Land Use Policy 8.14.2. It is, let's see, it's located within an urban village, and there's specific policy direction for that in the plan. So based on those considerations and the policies provided to you in the report, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. The request is to rezone 2323 West North B Street from RM16 Residential Multifamily to CN Commercial Neighborhood. The property is located at the northeast corner. I'm going to show up my screen. In the red, northeast corner of West North B Street and North Armenia Avenue. It's comprised of Lot 7 of a subdivision platted in 1907. Property surrounding the site is either zoned RM18, RM16, or planned development and developed with a commercial uses. The request to rezone to CN is compatible with the existing development pattern and general character of the area. Because the subject property abuts North Armenia Avenue, it provides a buffer to the RM16 properties, RM16 zoned properties to the east. The subject property is located within West Tampa overlay, and if approved, CN zoning allows for commercial uses such as a clinic, business, professional office, restaurant, or retail sales. Although the subject lot does not meet minimum lot width, it is a platted lot of record in the West Tampa overlay and therefore can be considered for this rezoning. Staff therefore finds the request consistent, and I'm going to show you some pictures of the site. So this is its subject site facing east from North Armenia Avenue. This is the site facing north from West North B Street. This is facing north along North Armenia Avenue. Property directly south of the subject site, again along North Armenia Avenue, facing south. Further south along North Armenia. And this is property directly east on West North B Street. And then property directly west of the site across Armenia Avenue. And you can see the subject site in the picture as well. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Thank you. Mr. Shelby, out of an abundance of caution and to be transparent, this property was rented out by a former girlfriend of mine. I had never met the owners, so I'm just wanting to let everybody know that I've had no communication with the owners at all.
And you have, well, thank you for sharing that.
Just want to make that crystal clear to everyone.
Can you be fair and impartial?
Of course I can. Yes, of course I will be fair and impartial.
Well,
I just
thank
would
you
like
for
everybody
asking
to know
that, Mr.
that I
Manscalco.
have never met the owners. Applicants, are you online? You're both muted.
My sister and I own the property jointly.
Ladies,
And
ladies, what I need for you to do is raise your right hand to be sworn in. Both of you ladies. There you go. I see your hand now. There you go.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may lower your hand.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Russo and Ms. Jones, when you speak, can you please state your name for the records? Ms. Russo, please go ahead.
I'm Shirley Russo, and I own the property at 2323 North B with my sister, Laura Jones.
Ms. Jones, you're muted.
You're muted.
Ms. Russo, would you like to start the conversation on the reason why you want this change?
Well, the property is bordered on both sides by commercial. It has a beauty shop in front of it. It has a lawyer's office in back of it. And the street, Armenia, has become quite commercial in the businesses that's on the street. And at this time, we would like to see it change from residential to commercial.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones, did you want to add anything?
She's not.
No, sir. Can you still not hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Russo, does this end your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions for Ms. Russo or Ms. Jones? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Anyone in chambers? Seeing none. We have motion closed by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. I believe it is Councilman Goods.
All right, file REZ 2309. Order has been presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 2323 West North B Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RM16 residential multifamily to CN commercial neighborhoods, providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Councilman Goods, did you want to elaborate more on your findings? Just for the record.
All right. Let me get to the right one. How about that? All right. The proposed zoning district will allow for compatible development with the surrounding area and will not alter the character of the development pattern along North Howard Avenue and North Armenia Avenue, consistent with Land Use Policy 1.2.8.
Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Let's have a roll call vote.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson, Goods,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on April 6, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 10. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 10, file number REZ 23-11.
Good evening, Andy Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 10 is REZ 2311. The request is rezone property from CG, Commercial General, to PD, Plan Development for Medical Office. I'll turn over the presentation to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. David Hay, Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. We end the night in the Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the West Tampa Urban Village. The subject site is located within a mixed-use corridor as defined by the comprehensive plan. Vila Brothers Park is the closest public recreation facility. There is transit on North Howard Avenue, and the subject site is located within Evacuation Zone C. On to the aerial. We're just to the east of where we were on the last case, which was over here. Now this is Howard Avenue, and this is North A Street to the south. There's an alley to the north. This is mostly non-residential development. This is the TD Bank at the corner of Howard and Kennedy. There is mostly single-family detached up here. There are some duplexes and some missing middle multifamily also located on North B. On to the future land use map. The subject site and the properties to the north, south, well, basically surrounding it, are all within the Community Mixed Use 35 future land use category. It gets more intensive down near Kennedy. This is the urban mixed-use 60. And then to the northwest of the subject site, that's the residential 20, future land use category, in that brown color. The PD proposes a 0.3 FAR, which is below the allowed FAR. The site can be considered under that community mixed use 35 designation. That goes up to a 2 FAR is the maximum. The site is located within a mixed use corridor. That the building design has implemented a number of the policy directions from the comprehensive plan to create a more urban character. The Planning Commission staff does find that the request will not alter the character of the surrounding area and is comparable and compatible with this portion of the West Tampa urban village. And based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. That's it for me, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Again, this request is REZ 2311 to rezone from CG to PD for a medical office. The applicant is requesting one waiver to reduce a VUA buffer. The property is located at 214 North Howard Avenue. Subject site is about 0.2 acres and is located southwest of the intersection of North Howard Avenue and West North P Street.
You're upside down.
Oh, well, you can't read that? Sorry about that. All right, that looks a lot better. The applicant is requesting approximately a 2,250 square foot building for a medical office. Principal building setbacks are as follows: west 74 feet, south 3 feet, north 3 feet, and east 3 feet. Proposed maximum height is 20 feet. 14 parking spaces are required and provided. Vehicular ingress and egress is provided via an alley from North Howard Avenue. And again, this is where that VUA buffer is requested adjacent to the right-of-way. Overall, Development Coordination staff finds the proposed medical office use is similar in nature to the existing development pattern and surrounding area. Overall, Development Review and Compliance staff did find it inconsistent based on natural resources, that natural resources requested waiver. However, Development Coordination acknowledges that alleys historically hide the unattractive functions of society. So whether it be garage access or solid waste removal. Essentially, the use is appropriate based on the surrounding zoning and development pattern. And I'm going to show you a picture. So this is the subject site facing west from North Howard Avenue. This is the alley directly north, facing towards Howard at the back of the property. This is property east of the site, directly across North Howard Avenue. As you can see, medical and business professional office. Property shown south and west of the site as well. So here's the subject site, property south, and then again, that same kind of medical complex or business office complex. And this is property directly north of the site. And just to give you an overall idea, here was the plan development PD site plan with the building as well as the elevations. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions? Councilwoman Hurtak.
This is already commercial general. Isn't medical office already allowed under this?
That is correct.
Then I'm confused as to why they need a PD.
They're requesting that waiver. But perhaps the applicant can enlighten us
Okay.
a little more.
Seems like a lot of work for one waiver.
Anyone else? Commissioner?
Good evening, Ralph Schuler, 2401 North Howard Avenue. So, simple little project, commercial, surrounded by commercial. It's, the existing building would be demolished and a new, brand new, small medical office, which would be much improved over the current condition, would be established. We were encouraged by staff to be able to get the parking that we needed to apply for a PD. Show you the site plan. Essentially, this is the existing alley. We would improve that alley. We're using the alley exactly the same way the property to the north is currently using it, which is parking from the beginning of the site all the way back. We would, of course, have our brand new building disguise all of the parking behind the building, and we would provide all this with legal parking spaces, but we would use the alley as a vehicular turning and ingress and egress, which is also allowed. The only waiver we're really asking for is this waiver, which is a parking waiver when you can't provide a buffer if you're parking on the alley, which is again allowed. We provide as much green space as possible, but we are deficient on green space, but this is also an urban mixed use or urban type development that the surrounding areas also have similar and more compatible densities. Of course, our density is very low. It's only a 2,200 square foot building. But this is the use that the owner would like to use it for. I know sometimes medical uses can need intense parking. We provide all parking. We're now asking for any waivers at all. So there won't be any issues with that. Our building has a little front porch. It has, again, tries to be kind of neo-traditional, compatible to other structures up and down Howard Avenue, and we feel that it's a quality project. Again, this is the alley as it currently stands. We would improve the alley, and you can see the parking directly to the north. This is the subject site, and we would of course remove this curb cut and rework and redo the sidewalk and improve the alley. And all of our solid waste and everything has been approved. Everyone finds the project compatible. The only issues are because of natural resources, and I understand their concerns, but I think we've tried to overcome them as best we can. But this is I think a more urban contextual site and not something that we can provide all of that green space. That completes my presentation. Happy for questions.
Any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak to agenda item number 10, file number REC 23-11?
Move to close.
Second.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number REZ 23/11. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 214 North Howard Avenue in City of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning districts classification, CG Commercial General, to PD Plan Development Medical Offices, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by, sorry.
Come on. The proposed development does not alter the character of the surrounding area and is comparable with the portion of the West Tampa Urban Village consistent in Land Use Policy 5.1.2 and 5.1.4. The proposed development shown as the site plan promotes and encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Proposed use promotes the efficient and sustainable use of land and infrastructure. The waivers proposed development is unique and therefore in need of waiver. The requested waiver will not substantially interfere with the injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by the waiver.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on April 6, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Information reports. Councilman Miranda.
None, sir.
Councilman Goods. Councilwoman Hurtak. None. Councilman Maniscalco.
Yes. I have a couple, I'm sorry. I was doing some research. First, I'd like to make a motion that, I guess a request would go to Parks and Rec, that we recognize or do some kind of recognition in a form of a plaque, something small. I know there's gonna be a dog park, other things, something, for Sandy Sanchez, for her tireless work for not just the neighborhood, but for Vila Brothers Park. Actually, a little bit of everything. She's very, very involved, and she dedicates so much of her time in service to her community, and I'd like for us to do something. It can be very simple, but something for her. Oh.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Then I have, no, just, I mean, I can follow up with Parks and Rec, yeah. And then I have 4 motions. This is from the Planning Commission. Number 1, a request by the Planning Commission setting adoption hearings from TACPA 23-02, TACPA 23-03, and TACPA 23-04 on May 25th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearings.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
The second one is a request by the Planning Commission setting a transmittal hearing for TACPA 23-06 on May 25th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearing.
Second. Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Am I on, did I do 2 or 3? 2. Okay, a request from the Planning Commission setting an adoption hearing for TACPA 23-05 on June 22nd, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And the final one is a request by the Planning Commission setting adoption hearing for TACPA 23-06 on August 31st, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice for advertising the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, quick one. As I've talked to police officers, one of the things that they say worries them is that people inside the city have access to their body cam footage and they don't know who's looking at it. And so they would like us to enable them to look at the audit of who's looked at their body cam footage. So I would like to make a motion to have staff return on May 4th to report on, I can't do it before. Yeah. On May 4th to report on the possibility of enabling police officers to see the audits of who's looked at their body cam footage.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's it.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
And I have nothing. Receive and file?
So moved.
We have a motion to receive and file by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Carlson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
Adjourned? Or you still have, they're still here, are you?
Without any objection,
Say it, sir.
we're adjourned.